Chapter 1008. Hong Do's flames dimmed slightly, and he exclaimed in shock and horror, "Brother Enlin, what do you mean by this? Electric therapy? Fire therapy? We're not injured. I don't need any treatment." Enlin shook his head. "I think there's something wrong with you." "I'm clearly fine. What do you think?" Hong Do was unconvinced. Enlin chuckled coldly. "There's something wrong with your brain." Hong Do, boom! Lightning crackled as divine flames surged. An area with a radius of several hundred meters was instantly engulfed by Hong Do's blood-curdling cries. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 puff, puff, puff. Yu Do had already walked quite a distance away, and he was quite elated to see what had just transpired. "My grandson and Enlin are so close. They've only just met, and they're already sparring with one another." If Hong Do were to hear this, he would probably burst into tears. This wasn't a sparring match. This was a one-sided abuse. His grandson was being pummeled, and he was calling it a kindness? Did he get kicked in the head by a donkey? 3 minutes later, Enlin stopped and panted heavily after having his fill of bashing. Hong Do lay on the ground with bruises all over his face, and his body was in an extremely sorry state. He was extremely depressed. Thinking back, he had once battled Enlin and been imprisoned with him, but now, he had become a one-sided punching bag. "Hong Do, do you know what you did wrong?" Enlin looked down from above with a cold smile. Tears welled up in Hong Do's eyes, and he thought about it for a moment before his eyes suddenly lit up. "I shouldn't have brought up the fact that you were cuckolded by Yao Enlin." Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 puff, puff, puff. Hong Do had been beaten to a pulp. He didn't want such a useless teammate. In the end, Enlin gave Hong Do a thorough explanation of what had happened. Hong Do was astonished. "So that's what happened. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I got beaten up twice for nothing." Enlin chuckled coldly. "I overestimated your intelligence." Hong Do wanted to lash out at Enlin in rage, but the thought of Enlin's terrifying power forced him to give up on that thought. The river flows east for 30 years, and the river flows west for 30 years. Don't bully the poor. Enlin couldn't be bothered with Hong Do, and he immediately contacted Qing Hu to clarify the situation. Otherwise, he would never be able to get rid of this cuckold. The guests suddenly realized that Enlin hadn't been cuckolded. After dealing with these trivial matters, the sun had gradually set. Originally, the highlight of the wedding would only be at night. There would be all kinds of fireworks and immortal spells covering the entire city, and everyone would be celebrating. Now that the bride and groom had run away with someone else, the main event was naturally left unsettled. They couldn't possibly continue celebrating, right? The Fox clan could not afford to lose that face. Just like that, the group of living beings from afar gathered together and watched the Fox maidens sing and dance. The night passed just like that. In reality, these performances had already become boring to all of the living beings. The show had already concluded during the day, and the plot was 100 times more exciting than they had anticipated. It was full of twists and turns, thrilling and unforgettable. What a worthwhile trip. It's not just a worthwhile trip, it's a massive profit. None of the stories in the Tai Chu Chronicle are as interesting as this. For some reason, I like Princess by Yao and the Ugly Monkey the most. Me too. Not taking into account anything else, just that kiss alone is enough to tell me that they're truly in love. I heard that the Ugly Monkey is an elder of the 4-9 Immortal sect, and Enlin came here to help his beast pet. Who would have thought that I would see the Lord of Transcendence in person here? I thought that Enlin had been cuckolded. I was so excited for nothing. At the banquet, all of the representatives from the major sects gathered together to discuss spiritedly. It was quite clear that the main topic of discussion was centered around Bai Yao and Xiao Chou. After all, they were the ones who shocked everyone the most. It was like a beauty and a beast, and it was very easy to provoke them. As for Lan Xiaoni and Chun Nan, there were also people discussing them, but most of them were discussing the relationship between the Spirit Fish clan and the Fox tribe. The internal strife within the Fox tribe was definitely going to intensify because of this. Anlin, Tina, and Dabai strolled around the White Fox tribe imperial palace with badges in their hands. This stroll was different from last time. It was a lot more open and aboveboard. His mood was also different. Anlin looked at the imperial palace as if it were his family's property. Oi, Kui. I'm talking to you, beautiful little male fox. You moved this tree away. The location of this tree doesn't conform to the principle of vital energy balance. Anlin gestured with his hands. A delicate white fox's eyes widened. Human, who are you? Anlin puffed out his chest with his head held high. My beast pet is going to marry your second princess. Who do you think I am? The little male fox was astonished. It's you. The man who almost got cuckolded. Dabai and Tina couldn't help but burst into laughter. Anlin was in despair. What the F***ck did he mean by almost got cuckolded? That wasn't even the same thing. There was no such thing. He was so enraged that he wanted to hammer Hong Do again. F***ck. His reputation had been completely ruined by Hong Do. After learning of Anlin's identity, the little male fox obediently moved the tree away. Even though he had some misconceptions about Anlin, that didn't diminish the respect he had for Anlin. Anlin continued onward with a gloomy expression before entering a relatively large palace. Bai Muyu was already inside the palace, and she immediately stood up to welcome Anlin and the others. The White Fox tribe was very powerful, but the 4-9 Immortal sect was no slouch either. There were even rumors that sect leader Anlin had single-handedly battled the Dragon King and the most powerful being of the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas over a certain spirit mine. It was exactly because of this that Bai Muyu, as the leader of the White Fox tribe, didn't put on airs and treated Anlin like an equal. Sect leader Anlin, have you received any news about my daughter? Bai Muyu asked in an urgent voice. Anlin shook his head with a disappointed expression. After you left, I tried to contact Xiao Chou a few more voice transmission talismans, but no one picked up. In reality, he didn't call any of them in fear of interrupting Xiao Chou's romantic night. Bai Muyu's brows furrowed slightly with a dejected expression. It was quite clear that she really was a little anxious. Don't worry, they're still young, so they have to let themselves go. They'll come back when they've thought things through, Anlin consoled. Bai Muyu glared at Anlin. I haven't agreed to this yet, have I? Anlin chuckled sheepishly. He didn't dare to push his luck. He was only testing this beautiful big sister of his. From the current situation, it appeared that she was quite a good-tempered person. Bai Muyu heaved a forlorn sigh and shook her head before sitting back down in her chair. What's wrong? You're not really worried that they won't come back, are you? Anlin was a little perplexed as to why she was so anxious. Sigh. There's no point in hiding anything now. Bai Muyu heaved a forlorn sigh as she looked at Anlin and the others. In my daughter's current condition, without Chun Nan's help, she won't be able to live past a month. Chapter 1009. Xiao Chou held Bai Yao in his arms before activating his spatial skipping talisman, upon which he was teleported to a certain mountain range. Xiao Chou looked around at his unfamiliar surroundings with a confused expression. This is a random location over 50,000 kilometers away from Qinghu City. There are no Dao integration stage super mighty figures present, so no one would be able to track us down. Hence, no one knows where we are. Bai Yao leaped for joy like a little girl with Xiao Chou in her arms. Little monkey, we're finally together again. Xiao Chou also gave Bai Yao an elated hug. I've fantasized many times about when we would meet again, but I didn't think that you wouldn't find me ugly in the slightest. Hee hee. A vibrant smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she said in a seductive voice, That's because I've already gotten used to seeing you when I was a child. You haven't really changed much even though you've grown up. It's just that your ugliness has been magnified a little. Xiao Chou, what a strange feeling. He didn't feel any disgust toward Bai Yao calling him ugly in the slightest. Instead, there was a very warm feeling in his heart. By the way, give me your voice transmission talisman. Bai Yao extended a delicate hand. Xiao Chou didn't know what was going on, but he still passed the voice transmission talisman to her. Bai Yao stowed the voice transmission talisman away into her storage ring before unleashing an isolation spell technique. Xiao Chou was dumbstruck. What was she doing? Bai Yao held on to Xiao Chou's hand with a smile. All right, no one will be able to disturb us from now on. Let's enjoy our time together. Is that necessary? A smile appeared on Xiao Chou's face, but he didn't have any objections. If she wanted to do this, then so be it. Of course. At the very least, let me enjoy my time together for a month. A vibrant smile appeared on Bai Yao's face, and she was in a very good mood. Do you know, I've been waiting for this day for a long time? Even before the wedding, I had been looking forward to seeing you again on the day of the wedding. In the eyes of others, I'm a devastatingly beautiful woman. They try their best to curry favor with me, praise me, or get close to me, which I'm not used to. Only you look at me with such a pure and natural expression in your eyes, making me feel like I'm still the adorable little fox that I once was. The clown scratched his head in embarrassment. Actually, he wasn't particularly sensitive to the beauty of humans. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to maintain his composure like a stone monkey amidst a group of beauties from the fox race. However, the way he looked at Bai Yao was different. The woman in front of him, no matter how he looked at her, was so beautiful and so amiable that he couldn't help but get close to her. Just like that, they lived together and watched the moon rise and the sun set. Even if it was just an ordinary time, they would still feel very happy. Now that he thought about it, Bai Yao must have been looking forward to seeing him again on the day of their wedding. Xiao Chou was very glad that he didn't give up and chose to attend the wedding. Otherwise, he wouldn't have had the chance to be with Bai Yao. Sometimes, remorse and happiness were separated by a single thought. With a shake of its body, the white fox transformed into a beautiful white fox with snow-white fur and 4 tails. She skipped ahead, turned around, and said excitedly, "Let's go, little monkey, let's find a place with a better view and make it our new home." Sure. An elated smile appeared on Xiao Chou's face as he followed behind Bai Yao. The little white fox ran happily ahead of Xiao Chou, and little monkey trailed along behind it. They were both looking forward to what they were going to see next. Time seemed to have returned to the past. Bai Yao dug a cave into the cliff face of a spirit mountain to make it their home. She knew that Xiao Chou loved to watch the sun rise and set, as well as the stars and the moon. As such, she decided to accompany Xiao Chou and choose the best location for their home. Digging a cave into the cliff face not only allowed them to see the entire sky and the entire horizon, but it was also a very small space, so they could snuggle up against each other for warmth. That's right, this was the feeling of home. Thus, Xiao Chou and Bai Yao began to live a peaceful life. Bai Yao accompanied Xiao Chou to watch the sun rise and set, as well as the silver moon and the countless stars in the night sky. Xiao Chou went to pick fruits and catch fish with Bai Yao, and they were going to roast fish for dinner at night. Their lives were as mundane as water without any ups and downs, but both of them really liked this feeling. It was like the time when they were young, carefree, and they didn't have to think too much. All that mattered was that they were together. Perhaps this was the kind of happiness that they were pursuing. Time passed by, and everything was peaceful. Regardless of whether they were beautiful or ugly, they would get used to it after a long time. The only thing that could keep them together was not their looks, but something more intrinsic. "Little Yao, this is for you. I think you'll look really good wearing it." Xiao Chou pulled out an intricate floral wreath from behind him with a shy expression. This floral wreath was something that Xiao Chou and Bai Yao had gathered along the way as they strolled through the mountains. Bai Yao stared blankly at the vibrant floral wreath before her, and tears welled up in her eyes as tears began to flow from her eyes. "Little monkey, help me," Bai Yao said in a gentle voice. "All right." Xiao Chou felt like Bai Yao was even more emotional than he was recently, but he didn't think too much of it and silently placed the floral wreath on Bai Yao's head. "Is it beautiful?" Bai Yao raised her head, and Xiao Chou's face was reflected in her clear eyes. Tears were still welling up in her eyes, and they shimmered under the light of the sun. Xiao Chou nodded with a hint of sympathy in his eyes. "It's so beautiful. Don't cry anymore. Aren't you happy that I gave you a floral wreath?" "What? Can't I be moved to tears?" Bai Yao glowered at Xiao Chou. Her eyes were filled with seduction, and if anyone else were to see them, they would be completely mesmerized. Unfortunately, Xiao Chou was as stable as a stone monkey. Perhaps just as Bai Yao was used to Xiao Chou's ugliness, Xiao Chou was also used to Bai Yao's beauty. The two of them leaned against a cave on a cliff and looked down at the place where the sun had set. The afterglow of the setting sun cast a dim yellow hue over the endless mountain range. Bai Yao had her arms wrapped around Xiao Chou's arm, and her snowy white tail swayed gently behind her. The floral wreath was still on her head. Even though the two of them didn't say anything, they were still in love with each other, and even if they didn't say anything, they were still very close. "Little monkey, is Xiao Chou your new name?" After a long silence, Bai Yao suddenly asked in a soft voice. "That's right. Big brother and came up with this name for me. He said he thought I was ugly, so it was a very fitting name." A gentle smile appeared on Xiao Chou's face. Bai Yao stared blankly into Xiao Chou's eyes. This was the first time he had ever smiled so warmly while talking about someone else. "Little monkey, you really do have a very good friend." Bai Yao smiled. "That's right. Big brother and is such a good person, and he'll always share everything with us. For example, during your wedding, he was willing to take a huge risk to help me snatch the wedding." Xiao Chou was becoming more and more talkative as he talked about Enlin. Bai Yao tightened her arms around Xiao Chou's arm, and the light of the setting sun reflected in her eyes as she murmured to herself, "This is great. Xiao Chou won't be lonely anymore." What did you say?" Xiao Chou was perplexed. "No, nothing." Bai Yao shook her head relentlessly. Xiao Chou's brows furrowed. He felt like things weren't as simple as they seemed. A gentle smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she looked at Xiao Chou. Perhaps losing control of the frosty yang root was her fate. She wasn't going to become Chen Nan's Dao partner just to survive. She would rather spend the last moments of her life with the person she loved. That's right, she had been very happy during this period of time. She had no regrets in this life. "Xiao Chou, look. The light in the sky is so beautiful." "It is. It's so beautiful." Xiao Chou looked up at the pink and golden light in the sky, and an involuntary smile appeared on his face. Bai Yao stared at Xiao Chou's face, as if she wanted to engrave his features into her mind. "Xiao Chou, I'm tired. I want to sleep." "Go ahead, I'll wait for you to wake up." "All right." Bai Yao leaned against Xiao Chou's chest and closed her eyes with a smile as a single tear flowed from the corner of her eye. The sun set behind the mountain ranges, and the light in the sky gradually faded. Only the two of them were still snuggled up against each other, and their bodies were slowly elongated into one. Chapter 10:10. Bai Yao was still unconscious. Aside from her breathing, her vital signs were gradually becoming weaker and weaker. A terrifying thought welled up in Xiao Chou's mind. Xiao Chou held Bai Yao in his arms and yelled her name over and over again, but there was no response. Little Yao, don't scare me. Wake up." Xiao Chou's body trembled with fear as he held the woman in his arms. He almost had a mental breakdown. Just as his heart was filled with despair, he suddenly thought of a certain person. That person was able to create miracles even in the face of despair. Xiao Chou hurriedly refined Bai Yao's storage ring and pulled out his voice transmission talisman in an attempt to contact that person. To his surprise, the voice transmission talisman was instantly picked up. Hey, big brother and I. Xiao Chou was at a loss for words. Cut the crap. Where are you and Bai Yao? I'll come and find you right away. Lin's voice sounded in a crisp and urgent manner. An indescribable sense of warmth and hope welled up in Xiao Chou's heart, and he immediately relayed his location to Lin. Little Yao, you'll be fine. Big brother An is here, and he's very powerful. He'll definitely be able to save you. Xiao Chou held the woman in his arms as he prayed to himself. He had never felt so helpless before, and he hated his own powerlessness as much as he did right now. Not long after that, a spatial rift began to appear in the air nearby. Lin emerged from the spatial passageway with Dabai and Tina beside him. There was also a figure that Xiao Chou was extremely familiar with. It was Bai Yao's mother, Bai Muyu. Bai Muyu stepped forward and made her way over to Xiao Chou. She pulled Bai Yao away from Xiao Chou's arms before unleashing a spell technique to carefully assess Bai Yao's condition. How is she? Lin also flew over to Xiao Chou with an urgent expression. Bai Muyu wore a solemn expression and didn't say anything. She placed a slender finger on Bai Yao's glabella, upon which countless golden symbols flowed from her finger into Bai Yao's head. Everyone looked on in silence, not daring to disturb her. Xiao Chou stared intently at Bai Yao's face, praying that she would wake up. Moments later, the golden symbols disappeared. Fine beads of sweat appeared on Bai Muyu's face as she panted heavily. Little Yao still has 3 days to live. We have to capture Chen Nan within 3 days. Bai Muyu spoke with a grave expression before glaring at Xiao Chou. The clown shrunk back, feeling a rare sense of guilt. However, he still asked anxiously, "Will little Yao be saved if we capture Chen Nan?" "That's right," Bai Muyu said in a firm voice. "Let Yao or marry him and perform the deed between a man and a woman. Their powers will intercourse, and their yin and yang auras will fuse together. That way Yao Er's frosty yang root will be suppressed." The scene suddenly fell silent. These words were like a bolt of lightning striking the clown's mind, causing his entire body to tremble. Even Lin, Tina, and Dabai were dumbstruck. What the f***ck? Chen Nanxing would be able to save Bai Yao? What a joke. But that seemed to explain the ridiculous wedding. I've been sending people to track down Chen Nan for the past few days, and we've discovered that he has already arrived at the Sea Heart Palace of the West Sea. We don't have much time left. Bai Muyu took a deep breath before turning to Lin and the others. Aside from that, I'm still lacking power, and I need your help. Everyone fell deathly silent. No. We can't go. The clown clenched his fists tightly as he roared in a low voice. Bai Muyu's eyes widened with incredulity as she stared at the clown. Are you insane? In order to prevent Bai Yao from getting married, you're going to watch her die. You dare to say you love her? The clown looked at the sleeping Bai Yao with tears flowing from his bulb-like eyes as he shook his head vigorously. No, I know her. If she really marries Chen Nan, her life will be more painful than death. This was actually why Bai Yao had waited for the clown at the wedding before eloping with him. She would rather live a free life for a month than stay there. You! Bai Muyu's chest rose and fell as she panted heavily with rage. The clown raised his head stubbornly, but tears were still flowing from his eyes. Perhaps this was the difference in opinion between the clown and his mother-in-law. The emotional clown had chosen the path that Bai Yao had chosen. He didn't want to hand Bai Yao over to someone else for the sake of the man he loved, even if that price was death. He felt like that would only make Bai Yao feel even more pain. Don't be angry. Let's calm down first. Perhaps there's another way? Lin immediately intervened. Arguing at a time like this was not going to solve any problems. What other way is there? This is the only way. Bai Muyu clenched her fists with an enraged expression. Little Yao's frosty yang root is an extremely rare frosty yang spirit root. The power of that spirit root is becoming more and more fearsome, and it has already reached a point where it can no longer be repressed. Only a pure Yin-type divine flame can neutralize little Yao's power. I've waited for so long before I finally found Chun Nan. Without Chun Nan's dark corrosion divine flame, how am I going to save little Yao? Can you do it? Bai Muyu became more and more agitated as she spoke, and tears shimmered in her eyes. During the past 100 years, her relationship with her daughter had deteriorated further and further due to this incident. However, as a mother, how could she just stand by and watch her daughter die? Even if she had to marry her daughter to someone she didn't like, she wouldn't hesitate as long as she could save her daughter's life. Xiao Cho spoke in a slow voice. You what? You can save little Yao? If you don't want to cooperate with me, then I'll find another way. Bai Muyu turned to leave with Bai Yao in her arms. I'm saying that I might be able to save little Yao, Xiao Cho said in an urgent voice. Bai Muyu's footsteps faltered and she turned around. At this moment, black flames suddenly erupted from Xiao Cho's hands. The scorching temperatures of the flames were imbued with an abyssal darkness. He spoke. You said that only a pure Yin-type divine flame can neutralize little Yao's power. My divine flame seems to also be a pure Yin-type divine flame. Bai Muyu stared blankly at the divine flame in Xiao Cho's hands, and she was unable to avert her eyes. She had even forgotten the humiliation of being slapped in the face as soon as she spoke. Divine flame. This really is a Yin-type divine flame. Bai Muyu murmured. Does that mean Big Brother Cho can marry Bai Yao and have sex with her? Woof. Bai's eyes lit up with excitement. Bai Muyu. A rare blush appeared on Xiao Cho's face upon hearing this. As long as I can save little Yao, I'm willing to do anything, Bai Muyu gritted her teeth. What the hell was with this line? There were countless living beings in this world who were in love with Bai Yao, but Xiao Cho was acting like he was being wronged? Lin chimed in with a smile. Bai Yao and Xiao Cho are in love with each other, and Xiao Cho just so happens to possess a divine flame that can neutralize the power within Bai Yao's body. Perhaps this is fate. They should be a match made in heaven. Ms. Bai Muyu, in my opinion, we should hold the wedding as soon as possible. These words were reasonable and flawless. There was no fault to be found at all. Lin added with a smile, pure Yin-type divine flames are extremely rare in this world. Do you want your daughter to marry a man who tried to kill her in the past? That was a devastating blow to Xiao Cho. Bai Muyu, who was on the verge of losing her mind, finally came to her senses. Lin wasn't going to tell her that he also possessed a divine flame of pure Yin-type. After all, as his master, he had to think about Xiao Cho's happiness. Should he learn more about the setting moon flame? Bai Muyu turned her eyes toward the extraordinarily ugly monkey and fell into silence. Could it be, was he really going to marry his beautiful daughter to this ugly monkey? Chapter 10-11. Bai Muyu looked at Xiao Cho, and for some reason, the image of the pitiful and helpless little monkey who had almost been swallowed by the black leopard appeared in her mind. She had only saved the little monkey out of convenience. Never would she have thought that the little monkey would become her daughter's love interest, and there was a very good chance that he would become her son-in-law. This didn't make any sense. She clearly felt that Xiao Cho was ugly, which was why she allowed her daughter to play with him. After all, there was no way that her daughter would fall in love with an ugly freak, right? That would make it very safe. But how did she fall in love with him? Bai Muyu felt like the world was playing a prank on her. Xiao Cho's divine flame was the core inheritance of the Purple Star Research Institute, the Dark God. Back when he was still at the spirit-nurturing stage, the purity of his divine flame had already reached the divine flame level. He was now at the soul formation intermediate stage, and his Yin-type divine flame had become even purer as his cultivation base progressed, so he didn't have to worry about it not being compatible. In terms of divine flames, Xiao Cho's divine flame was even more suitable than Chun Nan's in-law. Bai Yao's health is deteriorating. Let's hurry up and hold the wedding. Just as Bai Muyu was deep in thought, Lin struck while the iron was hot. A conflicted expression appeared on Bai Muyu's face as she glowered at Lin, who was trying his best to repress the joy in his heart. She then turned to look at Xiao Chou. Xiao Chou's body stiffened as he sensed his mother-in-law's gaze, and he silently stood up straight, as if he were being inspected by his superior. His serious expression made his ugly appearance appear a little more dignified. Bai Muyu massaged her brows. "All right. Even though he's a little ugly, he was born this way, so it's not your fault. Seeing as you two are in love, I won't be so old-fashioned as to break you up." "I agree." Silence ensued within the cave. Immediately afterward, a burst of raucous cheers erupted. Tears that looked like pearls shot out of the clown's light-bulb-like eyes as he shouted, "Mom!" Bai Muyu's lips twitched. "I don't have a son as ugly as you. Xiao Chou, in-law, give me a hug." And Lin shamelessly spread open his arms in an attempt to embrace the exquisitely beautiful vixen before him. F***ck off. Bai Muyu harumphed coldly as she launched a palm toward Lin, sending him flying for several kilometers. Xiao Chou and Bai drew a sharp intake of breath. If this slap landed on their bodies, it would definitely turn them into ashes. In the westernmost part of the Tai Chu continent, this was a boundless ocean, which was called the West Sea by all living beings. The West Sea was one of the most perilous regions on the Tai Chu continent. There were tens of thousands of different types of sea monsters, and there were countless powerful demonic beasts among them. If one didn't possess a certain level of power, they wouldn't even know how they died here. There were two most prominent tribes in the West Sea, and they were the Spirit Fish Clan and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe. The Spirit Fish Clan occupied the Hong Meng Divine Altar in the depths of the sea and ruled over countless living beings of the West Sea. The Heavenly Turtle Tribe could divine heaven and earth and lived in a secluded area, but no living beings dared to provoke them. Meanwhile, in a side hall of the Sea Heart Palace near the Hong Meng Divine Altar, a handsome man was leisurely tasting the green wine. It was a fine wine brewed from the yin energy of the deep sea. It had the effect of refreshing the mind and beautifying the skin. "Chun Nan, are you sure you're all right? It's been so long, and there's still no news from that B***tch Bai Yao. Can your body handle it?" A woman with a blue tail asked with furrowed brows. "Don't worry, Bai Yao's condition is far more severe than mine, and she's on the brink of death. I'm sure it won't be long before they come to me in person and beg me to marry Bai Yao." Chun Nan swirled the green wine in his hand with a triumphant smile on his face. His dark corrosion divine flame was becoming more and more difficult to control, but it wasn't completely out of control yet. On the other hand, Bai Yao didn't have much time left. Bai Muyu's feelings for Bai Yao were enough to convince him that Bai Muyu would bring Bai Yao to find him. Lan Xiaoni harumphed coldly. "Looks like that B***tch has taken advantage of me. Let me make this clear, she can only be a concubine, and you can't spoil her." "Don't worry." A faint smile appeared on Chun Nan's face. "She's not even 1/10,000th of you to me. She's just a piece of rag that I can throw away after using." Lan Xiaoni blushed upon hearing this, and she stared at the handsome man before her with a tender expression. A gentle smile also appeared on Chun Nan's face as he made his way toward Lan Xiaoni. He had gone to great lengths to convince Lan Xiaoni to accept Bai Yao as his concubine. When the time came, he would have the mermaid princess in his left hand and the number one beauty of the Fox tribe in his right. Wouldn't that be a wonderful life? To be honest, he hadn't even touched Lan Xiaoni yet. The Spirit Fish Clan imperial family had very strict rules, and they could only do anything after marriage. So he should take this opportunity to, right at this moment. A golden lobster hurriedly rushed into the room. Big. Someone bad news." Chun Nan glowered at the golden lobster with an enraged expression. "What's going on? Spit it out if you have something to say." "I've just received urgent news that Bai Yao of the White Fox tribe is going to hold another wedding in a day. She's marrying an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Xiao Chou. The golden lobster yelled. Bam! The crisp sound of glass shattering erupted. The wine cup in Chun Nan's hand clattered to the ground, and the wine in the cup splattered everywhere. He abruptly stood up, and an intimidating aura erupted from his body. Bai Yao? 4-9 Immortal Sect? Good, very good. Creation Realm, Qing Hu City. The Fox tribe had only been up for less than a month, and they were once again doing so. This time, they were marrying Bai Yao of the White Fox tribe and Xiao Chou of the 4-9 Immortal Sect. The earth-shattering kiss between the number one beauty of the Fox tribe and the ugly monkey was well known to all living beings. Their story was passed down from generation to generation, and it gradually took on the color of myths and legends. Some stories said that Bai Yao was stranded in the Myriad Mountain realm and spent all her time with a stone monkey. The stone monkey gave birth to a spirit, and the two of them fell in love with each other. Others said that in order to differentiate between beauty and ugliness, the heavens created two living beings chosen by the heavens. When they were together, the world was able to experience what was beautiful and what was ugly. They were destined to be together. Only Xiao Chou was worthy of the most beautiful being. There were many other versions of the story, and all of these stories were passed down from generation to generation by word of mouth by a mysterious hand. It was exactly because of this that when the living beings in the creation realm heard that Bai Yao and Xiao Chou were going to get married, they didn't feel much resistance. In fact, many living beings even offered their most sincere blessings. When such a magical couple got together, it was definitely true love. The wedding was to be held within the White Fox tribe's imperial palace. If it weren't for the fact that time was of the essence, he would definitely have gotten Xiao Chou to come to the 4-9 Immortal Sect. However, Bai Yao didn't have any time now, so she could only hold the wedding at the White Fox imperial palace. Bai Yao had already awakened after drinking Xiao Chou's blood essence, and they would be able to consummate their marriage after the wedding. When that time came, the issue of her frosty yang root would be cured. The next day, the much-anticipated wedding took place as scheduled. Chapter 10-12. The clown gazed at the rising sun, his heart filled with excitement. Never would he have thought that this trip to Qing Hu City would become a wedding between him and Bai Yao. It was like a dream. The love that seemed incomprehensible to the world could actually receive so many blessings at this moment, which was also unexpected to him. Thank fate. He thanked Bai Yao for her love. Thank you, Big Brother and his friends, for your hard work. The emotional clown silently thanked Enlin, Bai, and the others in his heart. Clown, what are you thinking about? A gentle and clear voice sounded. The clown turned his head and saw a beautiful woman slowly walking over. I was thinking, you said you wanted to have a good sleep. That sleep scared me to death. The clown smiled. The woman's jade-like face blushed slightly, and she lowered her head in embarrassment. I was afraid that you would be too sad. I won't let you leave me again. Xiao Chou looked at Bai Yao with a serious expression. After tonight, your illness will be cured, and you can come back to the 4-9 Immortal Sect with me. Bai Yao nodded with a faint I'm a little scared that Chun Nan and the others will come to the wedding again. He also needs my power to heal his dark corrosion divine flame. Bai Yao expressed her concern. Absolute confidence glowed in Xiao Chou's eyes. That's all right. He has the power of the Spirit Fish clan behind him. Don't forget that we have the power of the 4-9 Immortal Sect and even the entire Celestial Court behind us. If he dares to come, I'll make sure he never returns. A smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she stared at Xiao Chou. A sense of warmth welled up in her heart as a sense of being protected welled up in her heart. This wedding had shaken the entire creation domain. Although the timing of the event was very rushed, almost all the representatives who had attended last month were present. Not only that, but all the powerhouses who didn't have time to attend last time were also present. The melon last time was too delicious. For this wedding, they were also looking forward to seeing if something could happen. Even if nothing happened, Just watching the #1 beauty of the Fox clan marry the ugly monkey was already very exciting. Because of this, the wedding this time was much grander than the last time. All the guests had arrived, and the experts were as numerous as the clouds. One after another, giant beasts or flying ships landed in the White Fox Imperial Palace. It was a magnificent sight and extremely lively. Lin also saw Hong Do and his grandfather, Yu Do. "Haha, little friend Lin, I didn't think that we would meet again so soon," Yu Do said with a hearty laugh. Lin also smiled and said, "Greetings, Senior Yu Do. Actually, I didn't expect that we would meet again so soon. Mr. Hong Do, I hope you won't do anything that will cause a misunderstanding." Hong Do's body trembled in fear as he recalled the horror of being dominated by Lin's fists. He immediately nodded like a partridge. "Don't worry, Mr. Lin. Do I look like the type of person to cause trouble?" "Doesn't seem like it," Lin said. A relaxed smile appeared on Hong Do's face. Lin added, "You've always been the kind of person who causes trouble and scams people." Hong Do was extremely depressed. "My grandfather is right here, can't you give me some face?" Right at this moment, a very special steed pierced through the clouds and appeared before everyone. This was a massive silvery white disc with a smooth and streamlined surface. It didn't seem to be made from any cultivation tool. Instead, it looked like something from the heavens. All the living beings in the creation realm had never seen such a special steed before, and all of them let loose cries of surprise. The silvery white disc slowly descended, and a series of powerful living beings emerged from within. "It's the 4-9 Immortal Sect." Some of the living beings let loose cries of surprise. All of the living beings turned toward that direction upon hearing this. The 4-9 Immortal Sect was the representative of the wedding, so they naturally attracted countless pairs of eyes. When all of the Fox tribe living beings turned toward the 4-9 Immortal Sect, all of them drew a sharp intake of breath as waves of shock surged through their hearts. There were beautiful and handsome people in this world. Su Xiaolan, Su Qianyun, Lu Qianhuan, Bai Ling. All of them were extremely beautiful, and all of the vixens were extremely envious of them. There weren't many male representatives. The ordinary-looking Tang Shiman was automatically ignored, and Xiaozi was too handsome, so there was only Xianyuan Cheng. However, Xianyuan Cheng's offensive prowess was comparable to that of an entire army. Just a warm smile appeared on his face, and countless vixens began to squeal in excitement. Aside from that, there was also the most adorable beast pet, Shui Zhantian, who was extremely adorable to both men and women. The Fox tribe was extremely sensitive to appearances, so they were completely won over by the 4-9 Immortal Sect. That's right, they had won them over with their invincible looks. Sigh, why do you guys think a sect with such exceptional looks would have a strange living being like Xiao Chou? All of the Fox tribe living beings discussed among themselves in a more reserved manner in order to save the groom some face. Perhaps it's because things can develop in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme? A Fox speculated. The appearance of the 4-9 Immortal Sect members created a massive stir. Lin happily ditched Hong Do upon seeing them before rushing toward the spaceship. "Xiaolan, Su Qiu, Big Brother Cheng, Senior Sister." Lin waved elatedly. Tang Shiman was a little disheartened upon seeing this. Why was Lin greeting his harem? Was he that shameless? "Lin, I immediately applied for leave after hearing that Xiao Chou was going to celebrate," Xianyuan Cheng said with an elated smile on his face. "That's right, as the big sister of the beast pets, I can't be absent." Xiao Hong waved her red pouch as she spoke in a sweet voice. Lin looked at Xiao Hong with a speechless expression. "You still remember that you're my beast pet. If it weren't for the fact that you're still talking, I would have almost forgotten about you." Xiao Hong harumphed but didn't say anything. Su Xiaolan made her way over to Lin with a smile on her face before pulling out her frying pan and waving it in front of his face. "Xiao Chou is celebrating a joyous occasion today, and the #1 chef god of the celestial court, Su Xiaolan, is cooking in person. Enlin was quite amused by Su Xiaolan's reaction. All right, then I'll be relying on chef god Su Xiaolan's astonishing cooking skills to win over the new members of our family. As for the #1 chef god of the celestial court, Su Xiaolan's status as a wife, Enlin was more than happy to hear about this frying pan. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao made their way over to greet them, and all of the 4-9 Immortal Sect members gave them a warm welcome. Bai Yao's beauty was already at the pinnacle of beauty, and she was even more alluring than Su Qianyun and Su Xiaolan. Everyone was stunned by her beauty. Congratulations, Big Brother Chou, on marrying the princess of the Fox tribe. Shui Zhantian flapped his little wings as he offered words of congratulations. This is the second most joyous occasion for our 4-9 Immortal Sect. It's a pity that it's being held in such a hurry. Otherwise, we would be able to further develop the sect. Xiao Zhe heaved a forlorn sigh. Enlin rolled his eyes. This disciple of his was too greedy for money. However, everyone nodded in agreement upon hearing this. Enlin, that's right, all of the higher-ups of the 4-9 Immortal Sect were trying to make money off of themselves. The sect opening ceremony was the most joyous occasion for them, and they had earned quite a bit of money from it. Now that there was a new member of the sect, it was only right for them to earn some money as well. How about this? Xiao Chou and Bai Yao return to the sect, and we'll hold another wedding. After all, we don't have much time, and very few cultivators from the Kingdom of the 9 States come here to attend the wedding, so we can't be biased. Enlin suggested. All of the 4-9 Immortal Sect members immediately clapped their hands in glee upon hearing this. Bai Yao was astonished. The mighty 4-9 Immortal Sect wanted to develop the sect through wedding gifts, and the sect leader was making it sound so natural? Could it be that she had entered a fake sect? Chapter 10:13. All of the core members of the 4-9 Immortal Sect were present. Aside from Little Huang, all of Enlin's beast pets were present. Xiao Hong, Dabai, Little Na, Little Tian, and Little Gu were all present. Even his disciples, Xiao Zhe and Yi Ling, were present. Bryce and Little Lang continued to guard the sect. This was the first time Yi Ling had left the Kingdom of the 9 States and seen the Tai Chu continent. In particular, after seeing so many strange living beings at the wedding, her features paled even further, and she gripped onto Enlin's sleeve to feel a sense of security. Master, Master, why is that carrot running away? Because the carrot has become a spirit. Master, Master, why is that bun flying? Because that bun has become a spirit. Master, Master, why are there so many things here that can become spirits? Sigh. I'll have to start with Panga's creation of heaven and earth. Enlin explained all of the phenomena that he couldn't explain with a resigned expression, trying his best to fulfill his role as a master. More and more strange living beings arrived, and Yi Ling's horizons were greatly broadened. The bride and groom also went to a palace to prepare, and the MC was also ready. The MC for this wedding was still Qin Yinghu, who was an extremely professional. Qin Yinghu was completely dumbstruck by 2 incidents of bride kidnapping during the last wedding, and he didn't know what to do. This time, he was going to redeem himself and host this wedding to the best of his abilities. All of the guests had already arrived, and the auspicious day had arrived. Colorful lights lit up the entire sky, and flocks of red-crowned cranes and colorful sparrows flew in the sky while singing joyous tunes. Qin Yinghu stood in the air and announced the identity of the groom in a loud voice. Ignoring the description of his appearance, there were many other aspects of Xiao Chou that he could boast about. Of course, he could also boast about his appearance, such as being able to shake heaven and earth and ward off evil spirits. Soon, the groom made his appearance. Xiao Chou wore a vibrant red robe and a groom's hat, and he made his way toward the location where the ceremony was to take place with an extremely energetic aura emanating from his body. He looked around at all of the living beings around him, and their hearts began to race. My God! He was glaring at them with his nostrils. The clown walked up to the stage. His light-bulb-like eyes scanned the surroundings, gleaming with spirit. His sharp gaze contained a natural might, causing people to feel that this monkey was extremely tyrannical. Qingyu calmed himself down and began to announce the identity of the bride. Bai Yao's looks, aptitude, and family background were all things that he could boast about. After all, she could be said to be the most perfect woman in the Fox clan. No matter how much she boasted, it wouldn't be too much. Before long, the bride walked out of the palace. Bai Yao's pristine white wedding dress fluttered in the wind. There was an extremely blissful smile on her beautiful face. She didn't look around. Her beautiful eyes were fixed on the clown not far away, as if the clown was the most worthy scenery in this world. The clown was also looking at her with an ugly smile on his face. Their eyes met, and Bai Yao's heart rate accelerated. Shyly and timidly, she walked gracefully toward the clown, step by step, as if she was walking toward the happiness of her life. Never in her wildest dreams did she expect that she would one day marry a clown. She had only been with him for a month, and she was already very satisfied, but the heavens had given her an even greater opportunity. This kind of happiness made tears well up in her eyes, even on such a solemn occasion. She was going to get married, and she was going to marry the person she loved the most. The White Fox tribe was giving her their blessings, the clown's family was also giving her their blessings, and all of the living beings in the creation realm were also giving her their blessings. What a wonderful thing this was! Bai Yao made her way over to the clown like a princess in the prime of her life as she made her way toward her knight. A knight didn't need to be handsome, but he had to be the most gentle and reliable person. The two of them looked into each other's eyes, and both of them smiled in unison. "I didn't think that I would get a chance to marry you in this life," Bai Yao said with a passionate expression. "I've fantasized about marrying you many times, and I've dreamed about it many times," the clown replied with a smile. Bai Yao pursed her lips in a smile. "What a coincidence, me too." Qingyu opened his mouth, only to discover that the bride and groom were chatting among themselves, and his heart sank. "I haven't even said the words yet. Is it really okay for you two to be flirting like this? Are we not going to do the vows anymore?" Finally, their conversation came to a pause. Qingyu immediately took this opportunity to ask questions. It was also at this moment that Bai Ling's brows suddenly furrowed slightly beside Enlin. She spoke in a slow voice. "The spatial white fairy has detected abnormal spatial fluctuations. Enemies have arrived." Bai Ling knew about the incident between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, so any mighty figures who had arrived at a time like this could only be enemies. However, the enemies didn't expect the spatial white fairy to possess such terrifying spatial detection abilities. Right at this moment, the clown and Bai Yao both said, "I do." The two of them kissed passionately. Thunderous applause and raucous cheers erupted. Enlin chuckled. "Those stupid C***NTS are all late to the wedding. They're hopeless." A cold expression then appeared on his face. However, even so, those who dare to disrupt the clown's wedding cannot be forgiven. A faint smile appeared on Bai Ling's face as she tore open a spatial gate. "I'll lead the way." Bai Mu silently made her way over to Enlin with 5 return-to-void stage mighty figures beside her. She said, "I'm coming as well. It's time for me to settle the score with Little Yao." A handsome man with a green tail also made his way over to Enlin's side. A faint smile appeared on his face as he narrowed his eyes. "I'm coming as well." A handsome man with a green tail also made his way over to Enlin's side. Ever since the marriage alliance between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, the White Fox tribe and the Green Fox tribe had formed a united front in order to keep the Black Fox tribe at bay. Ever since the marriage alliance between the Black Fox tribe and the Spirit Fish clan, the White Fox tribe and the Green Fox tribe had formed a united front to keep the Black Fox tribe at bay. All of the other mighty figures had also noticed this, and they could roughly guess what was going on. However, this had nothing to do with them, so they chose to remain on the sidelines. Yudo hesitated momentarily before making his way over to the spatial gate beside Enlin. Enlin turned to Yudo before extending a respectful salute. "Senior Yudo, I owe you a favor." "I'm just itching for a fight, that's all." Yudo waved a hand with a smile. Even though he held the 4-9 Immortal sect in high regard, he was more interested in the celestial court behind the 4-9 Immortal sect. There was no harm in lending a hand here. Thus, Bai Ling disappeared into the spatial gate along with all of the mighty figures. The two newlyweds fell silent as they looked on at the direction Enlin had disappeared. A smile appeared on Xiao Chao's face. "Bai Yao, meeting you is a blessing in disguise. However, meeting Enlin and his friends is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to me." A smile also appeared on Bai Yao's face. "I'll go with you, Xiao Chou. After all, I'm married to you, so I'm also a member of the 4-9 Immortal sect." The two of them knew what the other was thinking even without exchanging any words. Xiao Chou held tightly onto Bai Yao's hand. "All right, let's go together." Thus, the newlyweds, who had just gotten married and hadn't even had a chance to complete the ceremony, fled the wedding venue under the watchful eyes of countless onlookers. That's right, the two of them had fled the wedding venue. Host Qingyinghu. Chapter 10:14. At a certain location 300 kilometers away from Qinghu City, Bai Ling tore open a spatial rift and made her way out. She was tall and slender, and her white dress danced in the wind. Even as she stood silently in midair, she was like a beautiful painting. "Get out here!" Bai Ling gripped the air in the distance, and the space within a radius of 50 kilometers was instantly sealed. Crack, a spatial rift appeared. A series of powerful spirit fish clan living beings and black foxes began to make their way out from within. "Oh? I didn't think that you would be able to detect our presence," one of the spirit fish clan powerful beings said with an intrigued expression. "Big brother Hong Lin, this woman must have a death wish to stand in our way." Another crimson spirit fish clan powerful being with a vast aura spoke with a smile. "Senior Hong Lin, we have to hurry to Qinghu City. We can't waste any more time here. Otherwise, Bai Yao will definitely run away." The extremely handsome Chen Nan also chimed in. I don't need your reminder." Hong Lin shot a cold glance at Chen Nan. Chen Nan's body shuddered uncontrollably upon seeing this. Hong Lin turned toward Bai Ling, and his aura as a mighty figure at the Return to Void pinnacle stage erupted forth. "Piss off if you don't want to die, woman." Bai Ling swept her divine sense toward them before replying. 3 Return to Void final stage mighty figures, 1 Black Fox, 2 Spirit Fish Clan powerful beings, 8 Return to Void stage mighty figures, and 80 Soul Formation stage mighty figures. "It looks like everyone's here." Hong Lin's brows furrowed. This woman's divine sense was very powerful. So she really was a Return to Void final stage mighty figure? "Second uncle, let's not waste any more time. Let's just kill this stupid woman," Lan Xiaoni urged with an extremely impatient expression. Right at this moment, Bai Ling clapped her hands with a faint smile. "Everyone's here. Come on out so we can kill them all at once." Behind her, a group of mighty figures slowly made their way out. Many of the Spirit Fish Clan and Black Fox powerful beings' eyes widened, and even their breathing slowed to a crawl. Holy F***ck. So many powerful beings had suddenly appeared. And Lin couldn't help but laugh when he saw the dumbfounded expression on his enemy's face. He did some mental calculations to find that there were 4 Return to Void final stage mighty figures on his side, Bai Ling, Bai Muyu, Qing Beichen, and Yu Do. They had one more member than their opponent. As for the other Return to Void stage cultivators, there were more than 10 of them on their side. They didn't have as many Divine Transformation Realm cultivators as the other side, but with all due respect, the Divine Transformation Realm cultivators they had were not even enough for Lan, Brother Qing, and the others to cut them down. "Great, so you've already set up an ambush." Hong Lin took a deep breath as his expression turned grave. Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni's faces gradually paled upon seeing this, and their arrogance completely disappeared. They were now as obedient as little kittens. "You Do, this is a family matter of our Fox clan. Why are you getting involved? Are you trying to cause trouble for the Godstone clan?" Chen Hao, the #1 leader of the Black Fox clan, shouted angrily. Yu Do laughed heartily. The Godstone clan has always been on good terms with the Celestial Court. Now that the little war god of the Celestial Court is in trouble, I naturally have to come and help. Just as they were speaking, Bai Ling silently reinforced the spatial seal. Hong Lin's expression darkened. "Are you really going to fight to the death over this? Don't tell me you don't know how terrifying the Spirit Fish clan is? You can't afford to mess with them." Bai Muyu looked at all of the powerful beings before her with a cold voice. "As long as the Spirit Fish clan doesn't interfere in this battle, we can agree to release all of you." Qing Beichen's eyes narrowed with a smile. "That's right. As long as the Black Fox clan remains, it's time to purge the Fox clan." "Ha ha ha ha. Do you really think you can win?" The crimson humanoid mermaid laughed heartily as he splayed open his hands, upon which 2 long spears appeared in the air. "We've already prepared for the worst-case scenario. Our ultimate goal isn't to defeat you. All we have to do is abduct Bai Yao. Do you think you can stop us?" Whoosh whoosh. The 2 long spears crashed into Bai Ling's spatial seal with the power to pierce through heaven and earth, upon which an extremely sharp screeching sound erupted. Lin's expression darkened. The power of these long spears was very similar to that of the realm-piercing nail, and both of them were extremely fearsome when it came to breaking through spell formations or spatial seals. The sound of something shattering rang out as the long spears flew into the distance. Meanwhile, the crimson humanoid mermaid also instantly disappeared on the spot before landing on the flying spears. "That's teleportation. I'm going after him." Bai Ling harumphed coldly. Her spell formation had been broken, and she had been completely enraged. Bai Ling also instantly disappeared on the spot. Lin was very confident in Bai Ling's actions. As long as Dao integration stage mighty figures didn't appear, no one could defeat Bai Ling, even if the crimson humanoid mermaid was a return to void final stage mighty figure. Charge! Almost all of the powerful beings sprang into action upon the commencement of the battle. At a time like this, whoever struck first would have the upper hand. All of a sudden, a series of devastating spell techniques were unleashed, and violent energy swept forth, flattening the ground within a radius of several dozen kilometers. Hong Lin of the Spirit Fish clan spoke in a cold voice. "Chen Hao, take Chen Nan and Xiaoni to find Bai Yao. I'll do my best to hold them off." His aura began to climb steadily as he spoke, and he soon reached the pinnacle of the return to void stage. Hong Lin's body trembled rapidly as he split into 3, each of which possessed power comparable to a return to void final stage mighty figure. All 3 of them pounced toward Bai Muyu, Qing Beichen, and Yu Do without any hesitation. Chen Hao took advantage of this opportunity to sweep up Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni before charging toward Qing Hu City. Qing Beichen's eyes were still narrowed as a smile appeared on his face. "1 against 3? Who gave you the courage to do that?" Boom! A projection of a green fox god over 10,000 feet tall appeared in the air, and its sharp claws were imbued with boundless power of the divine Tao as it slashed toward one of the Hong Lin tribesmen. Hong Lin wielded his 2 swords, and his sword intent surged for over 50 kilometers as he unleashed 2 sword projections that were as dazzling as the sun. The green fox god's claws clashed with Hong Lin's sword projections, and it was as if a mighty fox had slapped a pair of dazzling suns into the air, upon which destructive shock waves instantly erupted. In the end, the green fox god's claws were still able to vanquish the sword projections and send Hong Lin flying. Even so, Qing Beichen's brows were still furrowed. His full-force attack had only managed to send one of the 3 Hong Lins flying? It was also at this moment that the other two Hong Lins had already pounced toward Bai Muyu and Yu Do to restrict their movements with all their might. As long as these return to void final stage mighty figures were restricted, all of the other mighty figures would be nothing more than trash. Who could stop Chen Hao? Who possessed the power of the divine Tao? Clearly not. Ha ha! Piss off! Chen Hao chortled with glee as he flew toward Qing Hu's city at an extremely fast speed with Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni in tow. His 8 fox tails danced through the air like agile hands, swatting away all enemies in his path. He was invincible now. Even if a return to void stage mighty figure tried to stop him, they would only be able to stand up to one of his tails. Right at this moment, a white light flashed, and a familiar face appeared before him. Chen Hao's expression shifted before becoming ecstatic. Enlin, you're courting death. Chapter 10-15. His plan had already been thwarted by Enlin, and now, Enlin had appeared before Chen Hao again. Chen Hao was ecstatic. Enlin had delivered himself to his doorstep to exact revenge. The Celestial Court was behind the 4-9 Immortal Sect? The Spirit Fish Clan was behind the Black Fox. The Spirit Fish Clan was not afraid of the Celestial Court. Die! He chuckled coldly as his 8 tails swept toward Enlin at the same time. An extremely powerful power of the divine Tao swept through heaven and earth, sealing off all avenues of retreat for Enlin. However, the fairy on his shoulder splayed open its hands, upon which a white light flashed. Boom! The 8 tails clapped together, sending shockwaves surging for over 10 kilometers. Chen Hao's expression shifted drastically as he discovered that he had missed. All of a sudden, a terrifying wave of flames swept toward him from above. He raised his head to discover that Enlin had already unleashed a fist upon him. An extremely explosive power came crashing down with the force of an avalanche. Chen Hao didn't have time to withdraw his tails, so he could only use his arms as a shield. Bam! Chen Hao felt as if the bones in his arms were about to be shattered by Enlin's fist, and his body plummeted to the ground from the force of the fist. How could this be? How could Enlin be so powerful? Chen Hao's expression shifted drastically, and he shook his numb hands. Before he had a chance to do anything, countless bolts of lightning fell from the sky. The bolts of lightning became more and more fearsome as they fell, and Chen Hao had no choice but to use his foxtails as a shield. Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni, who had been under his protection this entire time, were completely stunned into silence by the terrifying bolts of lightning. Following a flurry of flashes and explosions, Chen Hao's figure reappeared with white smoke billowing from his swimming tails as he looked up into the sky with a dark expression. Aside from Enlin, there was also a fairy dancing in the air. Aside from that, there was also a gargantuan black dragon circling above the clouds. So you found help? Very well, I'll make sure you understand how ignorant you are of your own abilities for daring to stand in my way. Chen Hao roared as his clothes began to rip apart, and his body rapidly grew larger. Soon, an 8-tailed heavenly fox that was several thousand feet tall appeared in the world. After revealing his true form, Chen Hao exuded a terrifying divine might that made it difficult for all living beings in the surroundings to breathe. The power of corrosion and death proliferated outward, sucking away the life force of all plants within a radius of 10,000 meters. Divine Tao Fox Technique, Space of Bones. Chen Hao clapped his palms together, and heaven and earth suddenly darkened. Countless terrifyingly sharp, jagged white bones appeared in the void, half of which was a cage, the other half a weapon, forming a space of death. It's the space of white bones. This is a domain that can only be created by expending a vast amount of power of the divine Tao. My father is getting serious. Chen Nan's expression shifted drastically. Can this power kill Enlin and the others? Lan Xiaoni asked with a nervous expression. Chen Nan stared at Enlin as a hint of hatred flashed across his face. He is the master of that ugly monkey. He must die here today, or we will all have to worry about his revenge. Lan Xiaoni's eyes lit up. So he's killing them all at once? A smile appeared on Chen Nan's face. That's right, he's killing them all at once. Just as they were speaking, countless jagged white bones flew toward Enlin and Xiao Zhe. These were no ordinary white bones. These were bones of death that were imbued with Chen Hao's power of the divine Tao, and they could easily slice through space and strip away life force. Enlin harumphed coldly and charged directly toward Chen Hao without adopting any defensive techniques. Die! Chen Hao felt like he had been underestimated, and his 8 tails shuddered violently as he unleashed all of his power. The white bones swept toward Enlin in a frenzy before slicing into his body. A searing pain shot through Enlin's body, and his divine body trembled violently as if it were about to be torn apart. His clothes were shredded, and a series of bloody gashes appeared on his skin, but he still continued onward. Chen Hao was given a massive fright by Enlin's indestructible divine body, and for some reason, a sense of danger welled up in his heart. He wanted to retreat, but a thought suddenly occurred to him. He was a return to void final stage immortal beast, but he didn't even dare to take an attack from a soul formation stage cultivator. Howl! The black fox roared with rage as its 8 tails swept toward Enlin. Enlin's petite frame was like a mosquito in the face of a palm in the face of the gigantic tail. He appeared especially tiny and helpless. However, a white light abruptly flashed, and Enlin disappeared on the spot again. The palm was very large, but it was facing a mosquito with superpowers. Spatial skipping again. Chen Hao's expression shifted drastically as he let loose an almighty roar, and the power of the divine Tao erupted from his body to form a protective barrier. Come on, let's see how you break through my power of the divine Tao. White light flashed, and Enlin's body had already landed directly on Chen Hao's back. He silently placed a large bronze ball on Chen Hao's back before retreating in retreat. Prior to retreating, he turned to Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni with an intrigued expression. Both of their hearts shuddered at the sight of Enlin's glare. What a terrifying glare! Chen Hao was slightly taken aback by Enlin's inexplicable attack. What the hell was Enlin trying to do here? Could it be this ball could explode? He immediately tried to move his body, only to find that he was unable to shake the ball off. What the hell is this thing? Even if it's a bomb, it won't be able to break through my protective power of the divine Tao. Chen Hao roared as he twisted his body frantically, only to find that the bronze ball was like sticky candy, and he was completely unable to shake it off. Just as he was about to swat the ball away with his tails, a series of golden chains shot forth from Tina's hands, binding his 8 tails and forcing him to a standstill. It was also at this moment that a terrifying power erupted from the ball. Ah! Boom! Chen Hao let loose a cry of surprise as his legs gave out from under him, and he collapsed to the ground. A smile appeared on Enlin's face. I've finally activated the large water ball. That's right, that ball was a world-level immortal tool, the large water ball that had once sealed the Dragon King of the East Sea. Once the great water ball appeared, who could contend against it? Don't underestimate me. Chen Hao resisted the suffocating pressure weighing down on him as he let loose an enraged roar, and his power of the divine Tao soared into the sky before crashing into the ball of water behind him. However, he soon discovered to his despair that he was unable to lift the ball of water with his own power. Black Fox Emperor, I'm here to save you. A clear voice sounded in the distance. A handsome man wielding a long sword flew through the air. A white sword projection pierced through the heavens as it flew toward the large water ball on Chen Hao's back. A hint of hope flashed through Chen Hao's eyes. This fox tribe mighty figure was a powerful swordsman, so perhaps he would be able to break this ball of water. Tina didn't say anything in that split second. Instead, she tossed a ball toward the fox tribe mighty figure. It was a translucent, pristine, and flawless ball. F*ck off. The fox tribe mighty figure reacted extremely quickly as he slashed his sword through the air. Whoosh! The ball was sliced in half. No, rather than being sliced in half, it would be more accurate to say that it split in half on its own, thereby allowing it to evade most of the fox tribe mighty figure's sword strike. A colorful light erupted from within the ball before enshrouding the fox tribe mighty figure. The fox tribe mighty figure only had a chance to let loose a wail of anguish before his body was sucked into the strange little ball. The two halves of the ball combined again before flying obediently to Tina's side before flying around in circles happily. Chen Hao, Chen Nan, and Lan Xiaoni all drew a sharp intake of breath upon seeing this. A mighty return to void initial stage mighty figure had been insta-killed by a ball? What kind of terrifying tool was this? Never would Chen Hao have thought that his black fox tribe would be suppressed by two balls. What sort of despair was this? What sort of mental breakdown was this? Chapter 10:16. Tina put away the little ball with an elated expression. This little ball was the first special artifact that had been created in the divine mirror world. It was known as the Pokeball, and it could suck living beings of lower cultivation bases than the user into the ball. This was the first time that Tina had used this artifact in battle, and it was quite effective. She licked her lips as she listened to the despairing cries of the fox tribe mighty figures within the Pokeball. She decided to have some fun with this artifact when she had some spare time. Lin flew toward Chen Hao atop his black brick in an attempt to engage in an in-depth conversation. To his surprise, Chen Hao's resistance was far more intense than he had imagined. The power of the divine Tao soared into the sky and surged through the air. The divine Tao Fox technique, Space of White Bones, was still being activated. Countless white bones flew toward Lin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe again. All Xiao Zhe could do now was serve as Chen Hao's punching bag and continue to expend his energy. I underestimated you. You're even more powerful than the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, Ao Meng. Lin pulled out his longsword to defend against Chen Hao's attack. Chen Hao was already at the end of his tether, so there was no need for him to take the risk and defend against the white bones. However, what he didn't expect was for Chen Hao to swallow Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni. Just as Lin was rooted to the spot. Go! I'll hold them off! Chen Hao roared as he opened his mouth to expel something. Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni flew out of Chen Hao's mouth before being propelled out of the white bone space by a powerful force. Lin was just about to do something when countless white bones enshrouded his body again. Don't even think about chasing them. Your opponent is me. Chen Hao unleashed his white bones toward Lin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe at the same time, giving them no chance to escape. It was quite clear that Chen Hao knew that he wouldn't be able to get away, so he decided to protect the two of them first. Lin wasn't going to let them off the hook. His storage ring flashed, and two silvery white figures appeared. Gundam 3 Yaoji, kill those two. Whoosh whoosh. Gundam 3 and Yaoji immediately flew toward Chen Nan as quickly as they could after receiving their instructions. Chen Hao was given a huge fright when he saw this. He didn't think that Lin would still have a trump card up his sleeve, and he immediately unleashed his power to stop Gundam 3 and Yaoji. A series of jagged white bones materialized from the divine Tao surged toward Gundam 3 and Yaoji with the power of death. Due to overexerting his strength, Chen Hao's stamina was exhausted. The weight of the ball slowly bent his spine. Accompanied by the sound of flesh and blood moving, he was instantly severely injured. What was most infuriating was that half of Gundam 3's body was paralyzed by his white bones, but Yao Ji was insanely agile. Not only was her calculation and evasive abilities exceptional, but she had even mastered spatial skipping. Was spatial jump so cheap these days? He can even control puppets? In any case, Yao Ji was able to evade all of Chen Hao's attacks with her agile movement techniques before finding an opening to unleash two cannon blasts upon the fleeing Lan Xiaoni and Chen Nan. Boom! The light cannon pierced through the void and arrived in an instant. No! Chen Haobei shouted angrily, but there was nothing he could do. Lan Xiaoni positioned herself in front of Chen Nan without any hesitation before activating the protective magic tool that she had obtained from one of her seniors. A precious bead transformed into a blue ball that enshrouded her and Chen Nan within. Her cultivation base was only at the soul formation pinnacle stage, but with all of her trump cards, she would be able to hold her own for a short period of time even if she encountered a weak return to void stage mighty figure. However, she had underestimated Yao Ji's power. Yao Ji was not some weak return to void stage mighty figure. Her combat prowess was comparable to a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage. Just this cannon blast alone was not something that a normal return to void stage mighty figure could defend against. Energy exploded forth, and the light of the explosion engulfed the entire sky. Lan Xiaoni and Chen Nan's blood-curdling cries erupted. Lin defended himself as he looked toward the direction of the explosion with anticipation in his eyes. The light gradually dissipated, and the two figures that were still fleeing into the distance appeared in his field of vision. Lin was quite disappointed, but Chen Hao's eyes lit up again as a joyful smile appeared on his face. Yao Ji still wanted to land the killing blow, but Chen Hao was not going to give it another chance to do so. Lin knew that the eight-tailed black celestial fox had most likely been forced to use some kind of mystic technique. Otherwise, its aura would not have continued to climb, and it was now able to stand up with the large water ball on its back. A dangerous light flashed through Chen Hao's eyes. Lin, you've done this. I'm going to kill you today. A faint smile appeared on Lin's face. What a coincidence. I was thinking the same thing. In order to create a more stable environment for Xiao Chao's sect to develop in, it was naturally best to eliminate this potential threat on the spot. Boom! Right at this moment, an earth-shattering explosion erupted in the distance. Heaven and earth tremored at the same time. An extremely dazzling fireball erupted with boundless light and heat as a mushroom cloud rose into the air, and destructive energy swept through the area within a radius of over 50 kilometers. Lin looked up at the miniature sun in the distance and fell silent as he sensed the terrifying power imbued by the nuclear fusion. Big Brother Cheng. Was he finally going to use his trump card again? The nuclear bomb had become a hydrogen bomb. Hopefully, it wouldn't affect his teammates. The sound of something shattering suddenly erupted from within Chen Hao's storage ring. His expression shifted, and his voice trembled with incredulity. Lu Xing is dead? Lin blinked with confusion as he recalled the earth-shattering explosion from before. Was Chen Hao's emotional outburst due to the death of a return-to-void stage mighty figure? Generally speaking, powerful return-to-void stage mighty figures could use their spatial powers to defend against nuclear and hydrogen explosions. However, return-to-void stage mighty figures who were new to the Tao of Void and weren't very proficient in it would be a different story. Bam! Another shattering sound erupted. Ah! Gong Sun Ro. Chen Hao's body trembled violently as he was almost forced to his knees by the large water ball again. Lin wore a sympathetic expression. Another Black Fox tribe powerful being must have fallen, right? The leader of the Black Fox tribe had lost two powerful beings in a row, so he was definitely not in a good mood. Meanwhile, in a certain place over 50 kilometers away, boundless white holy flames had formed a sea of flames that incinerated heaven and earth. A six-tailed immortal fox lay within the flames, completely devoid of vitality. A woman in a jade dress sheathed her sword before stowing away the six-tailed immortal fox's body and storage ring before swallowing an immortal pill. Her body was riddled with wounds, but there was excitement in her eyes. I've finally slain a rookie return-to-void stage mighty figure. A vibrant smile appeared on her face as she thought to herself that she had finally caught up to Lin. Lin could slay a return-to-void stage mighty figure, so she could do the same. Xiaolan, save me. This is a matter of life and death. A sobbing voice sounded from the distance. The woman looked up into the distance to discover a snow soul beast being chased by a powerful mermaid, who was running toward them in a frenzy. The woman in a jade dress fell into a daze. This scene really made one reminisce about the past. She thought back to how Lin would cling to her whenever he was in trouble. "Don't worry, little Tian, I'm coming to help you." Su Xiaolan let loose a clear cry as she pulled out her dragon sparrow sword again, which transformed into a flaming bolt of lightning that slashed toward the mermaid mighty figure. Chapter 1017. Xiao Chou knew what Bai Yao meant by "there's a chance." Go to hell. Lan Xiaoni was enraged. If it weren't for the fact that she was severely wounded, she wouldn't have been beaten by a soul formation initial stage B***TCH. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao's expressions also shifted slightly at the sight of Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni. At this moment, Xiao Chou descended from the sky with his dark god flames before stomping heavily onto Chen Nan's body, causing his internal organs to rupture, and he threw up another mouthful of blood. Not far away from Qing Hu City, Chen Nan's aura soared explosively again as dark corrosion divine flames surged forth from his body, and he launched a fist toward Xiao Chou. A massive fist of black flames tore through everything in its path as it pounced toward Xiao Chou like a vicious ghost. He stared at the oncoming beauty with a scorching light in his eyes as flames burst forth from his hands. Her smooth, fair skin was charred black, and her aura was extremely unstable, clearly indicating that she had been severely wounded. "Chen Nan, hurry up and take care of that guy over there, then come and help me!" Lan Xiaoni yelled for help as she defended against Bai Yao's relentless attack. Boom! Their clothes were all in tatters, making them look like beggars on the side of the road. Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni were both enraged by the sight of the two of them charging toward them instead of running away. A sense of elation welled up in their hearts, as if they had just killed Bai Yao's lover. Just as Chen Nan thought that Xiao Chou was going to be corroded into nothingness, a burst of even more profound black flames engulfed his dark corrosion divine flames. Boom! He silently put on his azure battle Luo mask, and his aura soared to the soul formation final stage as he charged fearlessly toward Chen Nan with his silver staff in his hand. Lan Xiaoni was already beginning to consider retreating. She didn't want to continue onward. "Don't worry, give me 1 minute." He could immediately tell that Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni had both been wounded. Setting aside Chen Nan, Lan Xiaoni was in an extremely sorry state. Chen Nan's face had been twisted by the silver staff. Lan Xiaoni hurriedly retreated to evade the ice blade. Xiao Chou remained completely silent throughout this entire process, as if he were a silent but murderous fiend celestial. "Little Yao, Lan Xiaoni is a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage, and she also has all types of high-rank tools. Should we retreat for now?" Xiao Chou suggested with a concerned expression. "So that's how it is. No wonder Bai Mu agreed to let you marry her. So you also have a pure Yin-type divine flame." Chen Nan's expression became even more dark and resentful. If Bai Yao and Xiao Chou were to hole up in the White Fox Imperial Palace and do nothing, then there was really nothing he could do. "Little Yao, you pick one first." Xiao Chou understood Bai Yao's intentions, and he chose to face her with a confident and domineering voice. They had already changed out of their wedding clothes. Such precious clothes could not be torn in a fight. They still had to consummate their marriage later. "I must have you." Bai Yao wore a white dress that accentuated her alluring figure. At this moment, Chen Nan's eyes suddenly lit up. Then, his gaze became passionate. "If we barge into the White Fox Imperial Palace with just our strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to return." "Ha ha, go to hell just like that. I'll take good care of Bai Yao for you." This time, he was unleashing his full power. That's right, they were none other than Lan Xiaoni and Chen Nan, who had successfully escaped from Lin. Bai Yao shook her head upon hearing this. She used her extremely powerful detection technique to scan Lan Xiaoni's body before speaking with an excited expression. "No. Lan Xiaoni is in a very bad state. we have a chance. Xiao Chao's eyes flashed with golden light as dark divine flames enshrouded his entire body. An extremely powerful burst of cold and destructive flames erupted forth, making him appear as if he were a fiend celestial that had emerged from the darkness as he made his way toward Chen Nan. A black-robed man and a woman with the human body of a mermaid were flying side by side. The two of them slowed down a little as their nerves tensed up. Bam! Xiao Chou and Bai Yao, Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni. Humph! A mere soul formation intermediate stage cultivator wants to fight me? My divine flames can corrode all things, so how can they not burn a stinky monkey like you to death? Chen Nan clapped his hands together, upon which flames exploded and completely engulfed Xiao Chao's body. This time, Bai Yao Chen Nan was also caught in a dilemma. The dark divine flames enshrouded his entire body like the most resolute armor, and he crashed directly toward Chen Nan's massive flaming fist. Two soul formation stage living beings were forcing their way into the White Fox Palace? What a joke! A white blade of ice flew toward him like a bolt of lightning. A faint smile appeared on Bai Yao's face. Leave Lan Xiaoni to me. The opportunity to avenge me is yours, Xiao Chou. The silver staff was imbued with unstoppable force as it tore through the air before crashing heavily into Chen Nan's face. A cruel smile appeared on Chen Nan's face as he looked down at Xiao Chou. I'm going to teach you how foolish it is to provoke me. Xiao Chou spoke for the first time since the battle began. It's over. Damn it. I'm going to report this to my father when I get back and get him to avenge me. Lin and the people of the 4-9 Immortal Sect must pay the heaviest price for what they've done today. Bai Yao gritted her teeth with an enraged expression. Humph! She let loose a pained moan as blood gushed forth from her wounds again. Flames exploded. The gargantuan waves unleashed by Lan Xiaoni suddenly froze over before shattering. The two couples who had been fleeing from each other finally clashed. What? Chen Nan's eyes widened. A silver staff was pressed firmly against Chen Nan's head. Pwah! His body flew through the air for over a kilometer as blood and broken teeth flew through the air. His body tumbled feebly to the ground, and his eyes were still glazed over, clearly having been knocked senseless. Xiao Chou donned a suit of black crystal armor and appeared to be extremely ferocious. Right before Chen Nan's incredulous eyes, the masked clown knocked aside the flaming fist in an extremely domineering manner. The dark divine flames exploded with extremely terrifying corrosive and melting power, enshrouding Xiao Chou in all directions before quickly closing in on him. You're still going to capture that B*TCH? Chen Hao isn't here anymore, and the White Fox Imperial Palace is filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Even if Second Uncle and the others have drawn out most of their forces, there must still be other mighty figures stationed here. Chen Nan was also enraged, and he unleashed his dark divine flames. The sound of bones shattering erupted. Even though Lan Xiaoni had unleashed her life-saving trump card in this dire situation, she was still severely wounded by Yao Ji's light cannon blast. Chen Nan's expression darkened. Let's set that aside for now. Our top priority now is to capture Bai Yao and bring her to the Sea Heart Palace. My dark divine flames require the power of her frosty yang root to heal, and this is probably our best opportunity to do so. You dare to look down on me? I'm going to teach you what it means to be a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Lan Xiaoni let loose a delicate cry as her fishtail swept through the air, instantly materializing a gargantuan wave that crashed toward the two of them. Ha ha! I was just wondering how I was going to capture Bai Yao, and now she's delivering herself to me. This is a blessing from the heavens. Chen Nan chortled with elation, as if he had been struck by a massive stroke of fortune. He saw another type of black divine flame. This was a type of black flame that was even more profound, purer, and more powerful. Xiao Chou's divine flames completely shattered Chen Nan's sense of superiority. Bai Yao followed up with another attack as she slashed a silvery white saber through the air, leaving a series of lethal trajectories in her wake. Each and every slash was extremely powerful and domineering, and her style was the complete opposite of her usual seductive self. Chapter 10:18. Lan Xiaoni's eyes widened with incredulity at the sight of Chen Nan's defeat. She was the one who had been severely wounded. She was waiting for Chen Nan to help her, but Chen Nan had been defeated first? Chen Nan had told her to wait for a minute. Now that a minute had passed, Chen Nan had finally been knocked to the ground by Xiao Chou? F***CK. How the F***CK was he supposed to fight? Why was there such a huge disparity between these two men? Xiaoni! Save me! Chen Nan screamed for help with all his might. Xiao Chou immediately swung his silver staff toward Chen Nan. Right at this moment, a streak of blue light hurtled toward Xiao Chou at an extremely fast speed. The blue streak of light was imbued with extremely powerful power, and if Xiao Chou insisted on swinging it toward Chen Nan, his own life would most likely be in peril. Xiao Chou had no intention of trading his life for Chen Nan's. His life was far more valuable than Chen Nan's. He immediately drew his silver staff as a shield. Boom! A violent explosion erupted, and Xiao Chou was knocked flying by the streak of blue light. He focused his gaze to discover that it was a semi-transparent blue fish. The small fish shook its tail and tore through the air again. It was as fast as a bolt of blue lightning, and it carried with it a powerful force as it charged toward the clown. Xiao Chou didn't dare to underestimate the little blue fish. The power that the little fish unleashed was even greater than Chen Nan's. It was quite clear that this was another of Lan Xiaoni's pay-to-win trump cards. Run, Chen Nan! Little spirit fish, and I will hold them off! Lan Xiaoni yelled with tears in her eyes. All right. Without the slightest hesitation, Chen Nan crawled up from the ground with great difficulty and used all his strength to fly away on a cloud, fleeing into the distance. Xiao Chou took a deep look at the wounded mermaid to discover that she was crying. She began to laugh as she wept. The severely wounded Lan Xiaoni had been forced into a dire situation by Bai Yao. The emotional Xiao Chou could empathize with Lan Xiaoni. Lan Xiaoni had told Chen Nan to run away first, but she was most likely going to die here. Although this was her own decision, seeing Chen Nan escape so decisively without saying a single word or even taking a second glance at her, it still tore a hole in her heart. She was crying for the separation of life and death, but she was laughing at her own stupidity. The clown could understand, but he could not let this foolish woman go. After all, she and Chen Nan had conspired to take Bai Yao's life, so there was no way Xiao Chou was going to hold back. The clown swung his silver rod and found an opportunity to smash the small blue fish in the head. Rumble! The small blue fish was smashed and suddenly exploded. The blue explosion annihilated everything within a radius of several hundred meters. The clown was sent flying by the explosion and spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, he had the black crystal armor and the divine flame to protect him. Otherwise, his soul formation stage body would not have been able to withstand such a terrifying explosion. How dare you injure my Dao companion? You're courting death. Bai Yao flared up with rage upon seeing that Xiao Chou had almost been blasted to death, and her saber intent became even more ferocious as she slashed down toward Lan Xiaoni with all her might. Lan Xiaoni used her water to defend herself, and she retreated over and over again. But as the saying goes, being on guard for too long is bound to fail. Streaks of blood began to appear on her pure white and delicate skin, making her look particularly pathetic. His body had been severely wounded by Yao Ji's light cannon, so there was no way he could defend himself against Bai Yao's ferocious saber strikes. Soon, Lan Xiaoni was beginning to falter. The white saber projection was imbued with extreme sharpness, and it tore through Lan Xiaoni's vital water barrier before striking her slender waist, upon which it was sliced in half with unstoppable force. Just like that, her fishtail and her body were sliced in half. Lan Xiaoni's blue eyes gradually became glazed over as she stared at her severed body with incredulity. Blood gushed forth from her mouth. She turned toward the direction that Chen Nan had fled in, but he was already nowhere to be seen. Tears were still flowing down her face, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Was this the end? They weren't married yet, and she was going to get married soon. She had finally managed to kidnap the groom, but he was nowhere to be found. Lan Xiaoni silently closed her eyes. She fell into boundless darkness. Bai Yao's snowy white saber slashed down upon Lan Xiaoni again. Boom! A blue barrier suddenly erupted from Lan Xiaoni's body to keep the attack at bay. Bai Yao and Xiao Chao's expressions shifted at the same time. An indescribably terrifying aura burst forth from Lan Xiaoni's body. Lan Xiaoni's life force draining from her body came to an abrupt halt. At the same time, a pair of sea blue eyes appeared in the air, imbuing everyone with a sense of asphyxiation. This was an aura that only a Dao integration stage super mighty figure could possess. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao were struck by a sense of asphyxiation. Thankfully, the eyes were not looking at them. Instead, they were staring silently at Lan Xiaoni. Whoosh! Lan Xiaoni's body was drawn by a powerful force, and the blue barrier enveloped her body as she flew into the sky toward the west before disappearing into the clouds. The sea blue eyes gradually disappeared, and the fearsome pressure abruptly dissipated. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao both heaved sighs of relief in unison. What a pity that both of them got away. Xiao Chou was a little disappointed. A vibrant smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she looked at Xiao Chou. But we completely defeated them. We won this battle, didn't we? Xiao Chou couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of Bai Yao's mesmerizing smile. That's right. That was quite a satisfying beating. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao had secured a resounding victory in this battle between husband and wife. In a certain forest outside Qinghu City, white mist flew through the air. Chen Nan was flying toward Black Fox City's headquarters on a cloud. There was no way he could fight. He had sustained such severe injuries, and he would only be throwing his life away if he fought. He couldn't let Lan Xiaoni sacrifice herself for nothing. She was the one who had saved her life. A resentful expression appeared on Chen Nan's face at the thought of Lan Xiaoni's tragic fate. Xiao Chou, Bai Yao, and Lin. Do you really think you've won? Lan Xiaoni is an extremely important member of the Spirit Fish clan. Do you really think you'll have a good ending after killing her? I'm really looking forward to seeing the expressions of despair and helplessness on your faces when you're faced with an undefeatable enemy. With this thought in mind, an ugly smile appeared on Chen Nan's crooked face, which had been hammered. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions and booms of energy could still be heard even from so far away. Vital energy surged like massive waves as gale-force winds swept through the air for over 500 kilometers. This was a battle that had never been witnessed in the creation realm in the past 100 years. Even soul formation stage powerful beings would most likely be reduced to cannon fodder. It's a pity though. Who would have thought that not only would I lose my future concubine, Bai Yao, but even my future wife, Lan Xiaoni? Chen Nan heaved a forlorn sigh. He was feeling a little sad. Boom! A crimson sword projection suddenly swept through the air. It landed directly on Chen Nan's body. PFFF. Chen Nan's body was torn apart by the scorching sword projection, and he threw up a mouthful of blood before plummeting from the sky. A figure appeared before Chen Nan with an expression of surprise and elation on his face. Chen Nan clasped a hand over the wound on his chest, and his eyes widened in shock. Who are you? A man wielding a crimson longsword chortled with elation as he looked at Chen Nan. If you hadn't been talking to yourself, I wouldn't have recognized you, you ugly C*NT. You're so different from the person in the picture. It's all because of your good looks. The man spoke to himself as he pressed his longsword against Chen Nan's neck. I really am the one chosen by the heavens. The entire course of this battle is in my hands. I'm an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin. Chapter 10-19. As an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin had a sense of responsibility and mission, so he naturally participated in the battle as well. However, when he exited the spatial gate with Bai Ling, he discovered that even the weakest enemy was a soul formation stage cultivator. How the F***ck were they supposed to fight? Flip the table. They couldn't even defeat the weaklings. One earth-shattering spell technique after another was being unleashed. Tang Shimin chose to observe from the shadows. That's right, this was a strategic retreat. These spell techniques could affect a radius of several kilometers, and they made his heart tremble uncontrollably. Just like that, he retreated further and further, further and further. This was way too terrifying. A bunch of Return to Void stage mighty figures were battling, and they were able to crush heaven and earth with just a casual spell technique. This is way too terrifying. Is this the world of the powerful? Tang Shimin felt like he was so useless. He had no idea what he was doing here. Even if he was a bystander shouting 666, his teammates wouldn't be able to hear him shouting 666 from so far away. He didn't even have the right to be a cheerleader anymore. How sad was this? Tang Shimin pulled out a pair of binoculars and focused his vital energy into the crystal to observe his teammates' battle. And Lin is so bad *SS. He can even kill the leader of the Black Fox tribe. Look at me. Sigh. Tang Shimin's chest constricted. There really was a huge disparity between humans. Holy F***ck. That Dabai killed a soul formation stage mermaid? So bad *SS. Tang Shimin's chest constricted. There really was a huge disparity between humans and dogs. Wait. Something didn't seem right. Tears welled up in Tang Shimin's eyes again. I'm just a useless piece of trash, wah. Right at this moment, an energy fluctuation suddenly erupted from the distance. Tang Shimin looked up to discover a fox tribe powerful being flying in the sky. Someone's coming. Is it a deserter? Or is it someone who ran away in fear like me? Tang Shimin's heart jolted with relief. It looked like he wasn't the only useless one. However, he soon realized that he was the most useless one. The expert from the Black Fox clan who was flying in the sky had obviously been injured in the battle, and his injuries were especially serious. His aura was extremely weak, and it was obvious that he was holding on. Tiske, his face is flattened, his nose is crooked, and his mouth is leaking air. Tang Shimin trailed along silently and overheard the man muttering to himself. Anlin, Bai Yao, Lan Xiaoni, holy **t. That ugly bastard, could it be that he was the dream of hundreds of millions of Black Fox girls, the leader of the younger generation, Chun Nan? Tang Shimin's heart jolted with shock. To think that he would encounter such a crucial figure in this war. This person is an expert at the peak of the soul formation stage. My strategy is to retreat. Just as he was about to flee, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Wait. Chun Nan's current condition, for some reason, Tang Shimin's breathing accelerated. His desire to turn over a new leaf was stronger than ever. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Tang Shimin decided that he was going to kill Chun Nan. Thus, an earth-shattering crimson streak of light pierced through the clouds and slashed the severely wounded Black Fox clan cultivator from the sky. Tang Shimin had trampled over the entire battlefield, and he uttered the most domineering words he had ever uttered in his life. I am an elder of the 4-9 immortal sect, Tang Shimin. Chun Nan stared blankly at the ordinary-looking man before him, and he opened his mouth with difficulty. Tang Shimin, who are you? Everyone suddenly fell silent. Tang Shimin, Chun Nan, bam! Chun Nan coughed up another mouthful of blood after being struck by the immense force. I was wrong, please spare me, big brother Tang. Chun Nan howled with agony. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm just an ordinary-looking man. Tears flowed down Tang Shimin's face as he continued to stomp down on Chen Nan's chest. Bam bam bam! PFFF PFFF PFFF! Chen Nan was frothing at the mouth, and his heart was filled with despair. Was he an enemy of the 4-9 Immortal sect? Why was it that he only encountered cultivators from the 4-9 Immortal sect and was pummeled by them every time? First, he was pummeled by Enlin's mechanical puppet, then he was pummeled by Xiao Chou, and now, he was being pummeled by a nut job. Tang Shimin finally vented all of the negative emotions in his heart after stomping on her body to his heart's content. Chen Nan was extremely enraged. He was a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage and the most dazzling prodigy among the younger generation of the Black Fox clan. When had he ever been humiliated like this? Now, he was being pummeled by a cannon fodder who hadn't even reached the soul formation stage yet. Should I kill you or capture you alive? Tang Shimin stroked his chin. Capture me alive. Chen Nan's survival instinct forced him to spit out those words with great difficulty. Tang Shimin pulled out his longsword with a disdainful expression. Do you have any last words? Chen Nan, was this B** starred retarded? Can't you understand human language? He didn't even get a chance to say anything before the crimson longsword fell like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Chen Nan's face was filled with horror and despair as he looked up at the blood splattering through the air. He looked down at his headless body and fell into an eternal darkness. Never would he have thought that his life would end at the hands of a noob like this. Tang Shimin sheathed his sword. I was just asking. Don't take it seriously. He silently pulled out a photographic crystal and took a picture before incinerating Chen Nan's body into ashes. His head and other spoils of war were stowed away into his storage ring. This war has finally been ended by me. Tang Shimin heaved a faint sigh of contentment. He raised his head and looked at the world-shaking battle in the distance. He was speechless. His gaze was misty and deep, and his entire temperament was different. This was the aura of a victor. He was like a swordsman who had successfully decapitated an enemy boss. He stood with his sword strapped to his back and looked up at the storm clouds in the distance. From this day forth, please refer to him as Tang Hei's King Shimin. At the place where the battle was the most intense, the eight-tailed celestial fox, the leader of the Black Fox tribe, Chen Hao, was engaged in a fierce battle with Enlin and the others. Within the space of white bones, a series of terrifying jagged white bones slashed toward a man. Enlin didn't expect Chen Hao to be able to unleash such astonishing combat prowess even after being suppressed by the large water ball. If it weren't for Tina and Xiao Zhe assisting him, he might have even been defeated. As it turned out, Chen Hao was indeed a lot more bad *SS than the Dragon King of the East Sea. All of a sudden, the sound of something shattering erupted from within his storage ring. Chen Hao suddenly stopped his attacks and trembled as he inspected his storage ring. From the looks of it, another capable general had fallen? Enlin was not going to let this opportunity slip by, and he immediately slashed his evil slaying sword through the air, instantly inflicting over 100 wounds on Chen Hao's body. However, Enlin felt like something was amiss as the air around him seemed to have congealed. This was a sign that a volcano was about to erupt. Chen Hao suddenly raised his head, and an extremely terrifying aura soared into the clouds. Ah! My son! The eight-tailed celestial fox let loose an enraged roar as his eyes turned crimson, and the light in the sky quickly dimmed. An indistinct tail appeared behind the eight-tailed celestial fox. Chapter 10:20. My sons. I'll kill all of you. I'll kill all of you to avenge my son. The eight-tailed heavenly fox's aura became even more terrifying as a semi-transparent ninth tail appeared, from which an extremely terrifying ferocious might erupted into the sky. That sorrowful emotion even affected the weather of heaven and earth. The sky quickly dimmed as the sunlight was engulfed by the power of death. In the middle of the 8 huge tails, There was a translucent black tail with a seemingly solid white tailbone. It was ferocious and sharp, making one's heart palpitate. And Lin's heart thumped in his chest. Facing Chen Hao in his current state, he felt as if he were facing the Dark Knight Monarch. Bam! A violent boom erupted as the large water ball was knocked flying by the eight-tailed heavenly fox. No, it should be referred to as a nine-tailed heavenly fox, or a pseudo-nine-tailed heavenly fox. And Lin stowed the large water ball away. Its suppressive effect was already useless against Chen Hao. Why do all my enemies like to self-detonate so much these days? And Lin's lips twitched. Chen Hao's eyes were crimson as he stared intently at An Lin. He clenched his claws tightly, as if he were a ferocious beast preparing to tear apart its prey. The space around him began to tremor involuntarily. Chen Hao's aura became even more vast and ethereal after the ninth tail appeared. He had already reached the pinnacle of the return to void stage, as if he were only a hair's breadth away from the Dao integration stage. And Lin would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. Chen Hao was clearly going to have to pay an extremely heavy price to unleash such a powerful spell technique, but that wasn't what An Lin was concerned about. All he was concerned about was how he was going to survive. His life was extremely precious. Even if Chen Hao were to suddenly die after unleashing this mystic technique, it would still be a huge loss for him. Meanwhile, on another battlefield, Bai Ling and the Crimson Mermaid were engaged in a fierce battle. The Crimson Mermaid had another gaping wound inflicted upon its body by Bai Ling's spatial slicing technique. It hurtled back in retreat, only to find Bai Ling striding through the air toward it before collecting the Mermaid's blood into a vial. The Mermaid almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon seeing this. His scales, blood, and hair had all been harvested by Bai Ling. Rather than calling this a battle, it was more accurate to call this a journey of being dissected by Bai Ling for research purposes. Too frightening, this woman is too frightening. A chill ran down the spine of the mermaid's spine at the sight of the mermaid. When had a return to void final stage Spirit Fish Clan mighty figure ever suffered such humiliation? Right at this moment, a command issued by a certain super mighty figure outside the west of the sea flashed through its mind. Chi of it. It let out a loud roar and began to flee. This place was too scary. He didn't want to stay here a second longer. This spirit was the Bai of the spirit. Ling Bai King Ling, Bai Spirit was spirit appeared. They were of spirit. She looked at the blood in the small bottle and smiled with satisfaction. Who cares? It's not like I didn't gain anything from this battle. I've gained quite a lot from this battle. Hong spirit of he of dragon. He moon of spirit. The dragon be god dragon King Hong. He king all of the other Spirit Fish Clan powerful beings also began to retreat. They didn't seem to be in a very good mood. All of the 4-9 Immortal Sect and White Fox tribe powerful beings were ecstatic to see this. Their enemy's pain was their joy. It was quite clear that their plan had failed, even though they didn't know why. The retreat of the Spirit Fish Clan sent the Black Fox tribe into a panic. Their allies had suddenly abandoned them and fled. They were going to be annihilated in the face of such a large group of powerful beings. The Black Fox tribe mighty figures weren't idiot. They knew that they would definitely lose if they continued to fight, so they also began to flee. Thus, their enemies began to suffer a crushing defeat. Let's give them a good beating, woof. Dabai chased after them with elation. On a certain mountain peak over 50 kilometers away, Tang Shimin wore a white robe flapping in the wind, and a sense of pride welled up in his heart as he looked at the fleeing enemies. Right at this moment, an extremely unsettling feeling suddenly engulfed the entire heaven and earth. Howl, a mighty roar erupted in the distance, striking straight into the hearts of all living beings. Bai Ling, Qing Beichen, Bai Mu Yudo, and all the other mighty figures turned toward a certain direction in unison. Heaven and earth, there was a vast expanse of darkness. An inky black sphere extended outward, as if it were an engulfing space that even sunlight was unable to shine into. There seemed to be 9 black tails waving within the darkness. Qing Beichen's expression shifted drastically. 9-tailed divine fox? No. This is a pseudo-9-tailed divine fox that was forcibly transformed by a mystic technique. Even though Bai Mu had denied Qing Beichen's statement, her expression was still extremely grave instead of lightening up. It was quite clear that even a pseudo-9-tailed divine fox was extremely terrifying to them. Enlin is in danger, Bai Ling suddenly said before charging into the inky black sphere domain without any hesitation. All of the other 4-9 immortal sect mighty figures also charged into the domain. Su Qianyun, De Bai, Xiao Hong, and Lu Qianhuan were stopped by Xianyuan Qing. The enemy is too powerful. Let's not get in their way. Xianyuan Qing didn't want to admit it, but he was forced to stop in his tracks by the might emanating from the black sphere. Qing Beichen and Yu Dou hesitated momentarily before flying toward the domain unleashed by the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox. In the face of such a fearsome enemy, even returned to void stage mighty figures could easily perish. Xiaolan, should we go? Shui Zhantian looked at the source of the terrifying might emanating from the domain, and he trembled uncontrollably. A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. Not for now. If we go there, we'll only make Enlin worry. A rookie return to void stage mighty figure and a cultivator, who wasn't even at the return to void stage, would only be of limited use if they went there. Su Xiaolan looked into the darkness up ahead and spoke in a low voice. I believe that Enlin will definitely come back safely. He's not even a Dao integration stage super mighty figure, so there's no way he'll be a problem. Shui Zhantian looked up at Su Xiaolan's flawless features, and he could tell from her confident expression that she was not just trying to comfort herself. She was serious. At this moment, Enlin looked up at heaven and earth, and he knew that he couldn't delay any longer. The pseudo-9-tailed divine fox raised his head, and his crimson eyes seemed to be glaring from the depths of hell. His 9 tails turned into the darkest shade of black as he slowly approached Enlin and the others. Go, Gundam 3 Yao Ji. Enlin immediately issued a command. Gundam 3 spread open its hands, and purple gravitational force erupted forth for several kilometers to suppress the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox. Yao Ji spread open her pink wings and stepped forward, upon which her body disappeared on the spot. In the next instant, she had already appeared before the pseudo-9-tailed divine fox with a pink particle energy sword in her hand. Whoosh, time seemed to have stopped. Gundam 3 and Yao Ji were both frozen in place by an indescribable power, and they were unable to move. Bam! A metallic boom erupted. Yao Ji's chest was punctured by a bone spike that had appeared out of nowhere. Chapter 1021. Heaven and earth were plunged into darkness. As long as one was in a dark space, the restrictive power was omnipresent. That's right, all of the darkness between heaven and earth was the power of the 9-tailed divine fox. Enlin was also affected. He tried to struggle free with all his might, but he was completely immobilized by the power of heaven and earth. He couldn't even move a single finger. This was an absolute suppression of power. He wasn't the only one. Tina and Xiaozi were also sealed. This restrictive power was even more terrifying than a spatial one as it was omnipresent and untraceable. The entire dark space was filled with the power of the 9-tailed divine fox's divine Tao. Chen Hao swept a paw through the air, and Yao Ji's body twisted before crashing to the ground. It's over. I'm going to kill all of you with my son. Chen Hao roared before waving a hand toward Enlin in the distance. Boundless darkness surged toward Enlin with the power of heaven and earth, as if it were a demon that was going to devour all living beings. Enlin's divine body was struck by an instinctive sense of fear for the first time. It's over, this thought suddenly appeared in his mind. All of a sudden, a white, rhomboid barrier enshrouded Enlin within. Rumble, the deepest darkness crashed violently into the white barrier, and what sounded like the roars of wild beasts erupted. Tears welled up in Enlin's eyes as he sensed this familiar spatial power. Big Sister Bai, you're finally here. A beautiful woman with cold features appeared before Enlin, and she glanced at Enlin out of the corner of her eye with a faint smile on her face. What is it, Enlin? This is the first time I've seen you only defend. Are you done? Enlin's lips twitched slightly. How could a man admit that he was done? However, he couldn't be bothered with Bai Ling's teasing as he turned toward the nine-tailed divine fox again. The nine-tailed divine fox let loose an almighty roar upon seeing Bai Ling's appearance. Crack under the pressure of the darkness, the white barrier constructed by Bai Ling's spatial power of the divine Tao began to crack open. Bai Ling harumphed coldly before extending a pristine white hand toward the nine-tailed divine fox from afar. Sky shattering. A thin white line tore through the darkness, piercing through the void of space. This attack, which was imbued with the power of the spatial divine Tao, was the sharpest blade. A disdainful smile appeared on the nine-tailed divine fox's face. The dark tails swung towards the white threads, but the spatial threads cut through the tails like clay oxen entering the sea, disappearing in an instant. Any attack that comes into contact with my tail will be reduced to nothingness. Before he could finish, a huge golden fireball tore through the darkness and descended from the sky. Chen Hao's 9 tails quickly retracted to form a giant umbrella above his head. Boom! The fireball collided with the tail, producing a sizzling sound. The dark 9 tails were like boiling water, showing signs of evaporation. At the end of the day, the ability to engulf spell techniques was only a matter of how powerful the power of the divine Tao was. There was no power that could engulf all spell technique. Jiawei had just been attacked by Bai Ling's spatial attack, and now she was being attacked by a fireball from the sky, and her expression finally shifted slightly. Right at this moment, the white flying sword imbued with the power of the divine Tao stabbed toward the 9-tailed divine fox's head. Chen Hao didn't even have a chance to do anything before an azure sword projection suddenly appeared from another direction, stabbing toward his A*S. Bai Ling, Yudo, Qing Beichen, and Bai Mu. 4 return to void final stage mighty figures had attacked almost at the same time. Chen Hao didn't think that it would be so difficult to kill Enlin. To think that he would be targeted by 4 return to void final stage mighty figures. Shadow manifestation. His body tremored violently, and his massive black body disappeared like smoke and mist before merging into the darkness. Boom! The golden fireball exploded like a bright sun upon crashing into the ground. Qing Beichen and Bai Muyu's attacks missed at the same time. Bai Ling harumphed coldly before disappearing on the spot. Enlin's spatial barrier disappeared, and he was just about to move around a little when he discovered that the omnipresent darkness had enshrouded his body again, immobilizing him on the spot again. Enlin, F***ck de Bai. Could it be that he had no choice but to be a bystander? He wasn't the only one who was feeling indignant. Tina and Xiaozi were also extremely indignant as they stood rooted to the spot like wooden blocks. Thankfully, Chen Hao didn't have an opportunity to attack them. Otherwise they would all be dead meat. This was the terrifying power of the 9-tailed divine fox. She was only at the pinnacle of the return to void stage, but she was already this terrifying. If they didn't have the power of the divine Tao to keep the darkness at bay, they wouldn't even have a chance to move. To the 9-tailed divine fox, all beings below the return to void final stage were ants. On the battlefield, as a mighty figure who had mastered the power of the spatial divine Tao, Bai Ling had done a lot of research on the 9-tailed divine fox's ability to merge into the darkness. She flashed toward the very center of the darkness before splaying her hands open, and her divine sense spread to every corner of the darkness as countless streams of information flashed through her eyes. Found you! She launched an almighty fist toward a certain spot in the air. The space instantly twisted and crumbled amid a howl of agony. the nine-tailed divine fox reappeared, and it hurtled back in retreat. Darkness slaughter. It let loose an enraged roar, and the darkness around it surged violently toward all of the living beings within the darkness. Bai Ling's expression shifted drastically, and she immediately unleashed her spatial power to teleport Enlin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe together before enshrouding them in a protective barrier with her power of the divine Tao. It was exactly because of this distraction that her body was struck by the darkness, and she threw up a large mouthful of blood. Big Sister Bai. Enlin let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing this, and his fists clenched tightly together. Never would he have thought that he would become a burden one day. Qing Beichen, Bai Mu, and Yu Dou had already unleashed attacks upon the nine-tailed divine fox again. Bai Mu's frosty sword Dao had reached the pinnacle. Qing Beichen's attacks were unpredictable and lethal, and Yu Dou's attacks were as heavy as a massive mountain. The coordination between the three of them could be said to be flawless, with control and output. The only thing they lacked was absolute suppression of power. That's right, even though their attacks were very well-rounded, they were still unable to break through Chen Hao's defenses. Chen Hao's nine tails danced through the air like a horde of demons, disintegrating and engulfing one powerful attack after another. Not only that, but he was also able to retaliate from time to time, thereby giving him the upper hand over the three mighty figures. If things continued like this, all three of them were going to be defeated by Chen Hao. Big Sister Bai, hug me tight, Enlin suddenly said. Bai Ling's eyes widened with incredulity as she turned toward Enlin. Enlin was trying to tease her at a time like this? Hug me and get within 100 meters of Chen Hao. I'm going to absorb his energy. Enlin added. Bai Ling came to a sudden realization, and a warm smile appeared on her face. I'll take you flying. She wrapped an arm around Enlin's waist before transforming into a streak of white light that tore through the darkness toward the nine-tailed divine fox. Chapter 10:22. Enlin flew through the air with Bai Ling in her arms, and all of the power of darkness around him was kept at bay by Bai Ling's spatial divine Tao. Everything around them quickly receded into the distance. Enlin drew closer and closer to Chen Hao. The nine-tailed divine fox immediately whipped a massive black tail through the air, and the space around him began to congeal at the same time. In order to prevent Bai Ling from using spatial skipping, the nine-tailed divine fox had already unleashed his attack and spatial seal at the same time. Bai Ling's expression did not change in the slightest, as if she had already predicted that the nine-tailed divine fox would use this method. A white formation suddenly appeared on the back of her hand, upon which a white light that was as soft and smooth as jelly enshrouded both her and Enlin's bodies, instantly breaking through the nine-tailed divine fox's spatial seal as her speed increased explosively once again. The massive tail swept through the air, and the ball of light quickly rose into the air to evade the attack in the nick of time. The other three returned to void final stage mighty figures didn't know what Bai Ling was trying to do, but they knew that she was doing something extremely important, so they began to attack Chen Hao with all their might in order to draw away Bai Ling's attention. Countless ghostly heads materialized from the massive tail, all of which pounced toward Bai Ling. Bai Ling didn't slow down at all. She used her hand as a saber, and like a female warrior slaying ghosts, she slashed through the air in a series of sharp trajectories, slicing through all of the oncoming black ghostly heads. Finally, she reached the nine-tailed divine fox's back and swung Enlin toward the nine-tailed divine fox's back. Go, Enlin! Boom! Enlin crashed viciously into the nine-tailed divine fox's back. Chen Hao, howl! Enlin's head was spinning, and tears were about to flow from his eyes. He only needed Bai Ling to get him within 100 meters of Chen Hao, not to get him into close contact with Chen Hao. Why the hell was he being tossed around like a human bomb? A smug smile appeared on Bai Ling's face as she looked at Enlin, who had crashed into Chen Hao's back. Her plan was actually quite simple. Enlin needed to get close to Chen Hao, so she would get Enlin to stick close to Chen Hao. That was the safest method, and it wasn't like it was impossible. Unlin grumbled internally, but the image of a golden eye still appeared on his forehead. Divine Plunder Technique, activate. A vast array of spells instantly appeared in his mind. Fortunately, Unlin's soul was powerful. Otherwise, he would have exploded from the overwhelming amount of information. Among the many spell techniques, he chose to steal the Master of Darkness. In that instant, the nine-tailed divine fox felt as if he had lost something. F***ck off. The divine fox god roared as the power of the divine Tao erupted from his body and blasted Unlin flying. Unlin threw up a mouthful of blood from the terrifying power of the dark divine Tao, and his body was caught by Bai Ling as he flew through the air. At such a close distance, even Bai Ling would find it difficult to protect Unlin, so it was best to distance themselves from him. Unlin, you're the best! Bai Ling exclaimed with elation. Unlin was at a loss. What's wrong? Bai Ling stared at Unlin in shock. You didn't know? Now, the restraining power in the darkness has completely disappeared. Unlin's heart also jolted upon hearing this. So, I can move freely now? Bai Ling's eyes narrowed with a smile. What do you think? You don't even know what you've done? I'm starting to wonder if you were the one who did this. A resigned smile appeared on Unlin's face. They had been in a dire situation at the time, and there were simply too many spell techniques for him to analyze all of them. As such, he could only choose the spell technique with the most bad *SS name. Master of Darkness. Who would have thought that the Master of Darkness was the spell technique that the nine-tailed divine fox god had used to restrict their movements? Unlin carefully reflected on the true intent of the spell technique before waving his hand toward the darkness, upon which invisible undercurrents began to surge. This feeling was very good. It was as if he was the Master of Darkness. Big Sister Bai, don't run anymore, Unlin urged. Bai Ling looked at the man in her arms. I want to fight. Unlin spoke in a firm voice. Chen Hao clearly knew what he had lost, and he turned to Unlin with an enraged roar. Howl! What did you do to me? Just his roar alone sent shockwaves rippling through the air for several kilometers. A faint smile appeared on Unlin's face in the face of this terrifying soundwave attack as he continued onward atop his brick with a calm expression. The soundwave crashed into a spot over 1,000 feet in front of him, but it was as if it had struck an invisible wall and was instantly repelled. Chen Hao's pupils contracted slightly upon seeing this, and a sense of foreboding welled up in his heart. Unlin looked directly at the nine-tailed divine fox god, and spread open his arms with a mocking expression on his face. I, Unlin, am the true master of this darkness. Boom! Boundless darkness surged in a frenzy to imprison the gargantuan nine-tailed divine fox. Howl! That's my power! How did you steal my power? The nine-tailed divine fox was both shocked and enraged as dazzling divine light erupted from his body to keep the surrounding darkness at bay. Chen Hao's home turf had now become Unlin's home turf. Qing Beichen, Bai Mu, Yudo, and Bai Ling all launched attacks toward Chen Hao at the same time. They were the ones being suppressed by the darkness before, and they were forced to unleash their power of the divine Tao to defend themselves, while Chen Hao was completely unrestrained. Now, the situation was reversed. They were completely at ease, while Chen Hao was being suppressed by the darkness. The result of this was a complete reversal of the battle situation. One earth-shattering spell technique after another fell upon the nine-tailed divine fox, and he was quickly forced into a disadvantageous position. Yudo broke through the defense of the nine-tailed divine fox's tail and sent him flying with a single punch. Bai Muyu's sword projection froze space as she slashed down upon the nine-tailed divine fox's head. Howl! White bone hell! A suit of white bone armor suddenly appeared on the nine-tailed divine fox's body. The sword projection struck the nine-tailed divine fox's armor, upon which dazzling light erupted, but it was unable to break through the defense. Right at this moment, Countless extremely sharp white bone spikes appeared from the darkness before stabbing toward Bai Muyu and Yudo in a frenzy. The white bone spikes were extremely terrifying, and when they struck Yudo's body, they were able to inflict a series of wounds upon his body. Bai Muyu quickly swung her sword to defend herself, but she was knocked back several hundred meters with each and every clash between her sword and the white bone spikes. The nine-tailed divine fox let loose a string of unsettling cries after donning the white bone armor, and the crimson light in his eyes became even more intense. He was clearly on the verge of losing his mind. Countless intertwining bones blossomed like a ferocious lotus flower with the nine-tailed divine fox at the center. Qing Beichen swung his claws through the air to swat the oncoming white bone spikes away before slowly opening his eyes. If he continues to fight like this, Chen Hao's divine Tao is going to degenerate, and he's going to self-destruct. So all we have to do is stall for time? Lin asked. A wry smile appeared on Bai Ling's face. Stall for time? If we really do that, there's a very good chance that he'll take one or more of us down with him before he self-destructs. A faint smile appeared on Qing Beichen's face, and his body gradually expanded before instantly transforming into an eight-tailed divine fox. The best way is to kill Chen Hao before he degenerates. Lin nodded as his eyes also lit up. Seeing as that's the case, I'll try out the new spell technique I just came up with. Chapter 10:23. The nine-tailed divine fox seemed to have gained the upper hand again after unleashing his white bone hell. The four return to void stage mighty figures were all forced into retreat by its bones. The white bone was like the scythe of the grim reaper in the darkness, constantly shuttling back and forth and cutting. If one was the slightest bit careless, they would be pierced through. Qing Beichen, Bai Ling, Bai Muyu, and Yudo had all detected Chen Hao's abnormality, and they knew that they had to end this battle as soon as possible, so they all decided to unleash their trump cards. Qing Beichen pounced toward Chen Hao and unleashed his claws. Qing Divine Seal. A boundless divine seal appeared before his hands. Azure divine Tao light pierced through the surrounding darkness as it flew toward the nine-tailed divine fox. This was the paramount divine seal left behind by the ancestors of the Green Fox tribe. It was created by a Tao integration stage divine fox, and it possessed the power to vanquish all technique. All of the white bone attacks that came into contact with the divine seal quickly collapsed and were annihilated into the tiniest particles. Rumble! The divine seal crashed into the nine-tailed divine fox's white bone lotus flower, shattering its skeleton before shattering it with ease. The nine-tailed divine fox sensed the danger, and his 9 tails formed a circular shield in front of him. The azure divine seal collided with the 9 tails, causing energy to explode outwards. An extremely powerful annihilating force tore through the 9 tails, leaving ghastly bloody wounds on them. Roar! Chen Hao let out a blood-curdling scream as his body was blasted away by the azure divine seal. At the same time, a mountain-like pressure came from behind him. Dragon Snake Rock Fist. Yudo's entire body was enshrouded in golden flames, making him look like a moving sun. His fist was imbued with monstrous power, and he ferociously hammered it toward Chen Hao's backside. Scram! Chen Hao was infuriated. His eyes turned crimson as he turned around abruptly, his claws whistling through the air towards Yudo's fist. The power of the divine Tao at the pinnacle of the return to void stage was unleashed without any reservation. Rumble! When the two collided, the shock waves of energy swept out for dozens of miles. The momentum of the fist was suppressed by the power of the claws. The 9-tailed divine fox's power of the divine Tao tore through Yudo's fist before crashing into Yudo's body with all its might, knocking him flying with blood gushing from his mouth. Space, spiritual source / A cold and ethereal voice sounded. Bai Ling unleashed her trump card when Chen Hao attacked Yudo. Thin blue lines formed a net and descended from the sky. The terrifying sharpness caused the space to tremble and crack. This was spatial energy that had been condensed to the extreme, and it could easily cut through all hard objects. Even space was as fragile as tofu in front of it. Bai Ling's spiritual energy slicing was extremely fast, and it instantly landed on the nine-tailed divine fox's white bone armor. A sharp screeching sound erupted, and the white bones materialized from the nine-tailed divine fox's power of the divine Tao were slowly being torn apart by the thin blue lines. The white bone armor was torn apart, and black blood splattered everywhere. The nine-tailed divine fox howled with agony as he unleashed his power of the divine Tao with all his might to defend himself. The nine-tailed divine fox's defenses were riddled with openings. Chern Hao colluded with outsiders and plotted to harm the prodigies of his own clan. He destroyed the foundation of our fox clan and should be executed according to the law. Today, I will eliminate you, the scourge of the fox clan, on behalf of our ancestors. Bai Mu slit her wrist and offered her blood essence to the sword. A sword projection soared into the sky, and the extremely low temperatures froze the space around it. She held the blood sword in her hand, and she descended upon the nine-tailed divine fox's head from above. One sword strike, and all techniques were parted. The pure white sword projection sliced the darkness in half, as if nothing could stop this sword strike. The nine-tailed divine fox's body was frozen by the power of extreme frost, and even his blood seemed to have congealed. Splat! The white sword projection fell and decapitated the nine-tailed divine fox's head. At this moment, Unlin had been teleported to the air above the nine-tailed divine fox by Tina, and he was just about to unleash his most powerful technique when he was completely dumbstruck by the sight of the decapitated nine-tailed divine fox. This wasn't F*King happening. He hadn't even attacked yet, however. The darkness did not dissipate, and sinister laughter reverberated throughout the entire space. "You want to kill me? I won't die until I kill all of you." The nine-tailed divine fox's tail slowly rose, and the bones on its semi-transparent black tail became as red as blood. At the same time, a pair of eyes appeared on its tail. Unlin's expression shifted drastically. So the tail was the main body. His voice reverberated within his sea of vital energy. "And Kirin, holy flame vermilion bird, I need your help." The two of them raised their heads at the same time. And Kirin was quite enthusiastic, but the vermilion bird was a little reluctant, but it still let loose a light cry. Boom! And Lin unleashed his origin energy of the netherworld, and his aura swelled explosively to the return to void stage. A golden lotus flashed on his forehead as he activated his Earth Lotus Supreme skill to its fullest extent, and the projection of a golden fist began to appear on Unlin's arm. 5 dazzling bolts of lightning erupted from Kirin's sea of vital energy. Devastating golden void lightning enshrouded his golden fist, and the power of the darkness of origin made the lightning as black as ink. At the same time, the flaming phoenix let loose a clear cry as a paramount holy flame fused into his fist. Gradually, the mountain-quaking fist, which was imbued with the power of the earth, took on a platinum color. With the assistance of the vermilion bird and Kirin, the power of the golden void lightning and holy flame was fused into the mountain-quaking fist to its fullest extent. And this wasn't the limit. Unlin looked up at the darkness between heaven and earth before unleashing his Lord of Darkness power. Rumble, boundless darkness compressed his mountain-quaking fist in a frenzy, preventing it from exploding prematurely. Unlin continued to inject power into his mountain-quaking fist. Double the energy, triple the energy, quadruple the energy within his body was quickly being sucked away. Unlin swallowed pills to replenish his energy as he injected power into his fist. The platinum color of the mountain-quaking fist became more and more dazzling, and the divine might emanating from it seemed to be able to suppress the darkness between heaven and earth. The nine-tailed divine fox's body shuddered, and he had clearly also noticed the terrifying spell technique that was slowly accumulating in the air above him. Unlin Chern Hao's voice was filled with boundless hatred, as if he were being ravaged by a demon. However, He didn't even get a chance to do anything before the four return to void stage mighty figures unleashed their attacks again. This time, they were trying to control the spell technique in order to create an opportunity for Enlin. Enlin's divine body was unable to withstand the terrifying power of the spell technique, and it began to crack open as blood stained his entire arm. He knew that if things continued like this, his arm was going to explode. Enlin turned to the nine-tailed divine fox on the ground before descending from the sky. He launched an almighty punch with his bloodied arm. Eightfold darkness, holy flame, mountain quaking lightning fist. The platinum fist was like the rising sun, pulverizing all of the darkness between heaven and earth. It slowly descended, as if it were the calm before a nuclear bomb crashed into the ground. Everything remained silent and unmoving, and only its dazzling light remained. The nine-tailed divine fox twisted its body frantically, but the layers of control spell techniques made it unable to escape. It had nowhere to put its 9 tails, and a sense of impending doom engulfed its entire body. Just like that, the fist landed on its body. At that moment, all the restrictions on it disappeared. Boom! Eightfold, darkness-type holy fire mountain quaking lightning fist exploded. The platinum energy instantly engulfed everything in the surroundings. Life, soil, dust, void, everything was annihilated by that terrifying energy. The darkness that was powerful enough to engulf the light of the sun was instantly pulverized by the white energy. A fireball that was even more dazzling than the sun appeared in this world. Destructive power ravaged everything. The power of the earth, the power of death, the power of annihilation, the power of the golden void lightning, and the power of the holy flame all erupted in an unbridled manner. Space was shattered, and chaotic turbulence erupted. The earth tremored and cracked open as terrifying shock waves swept forth for over 1,000 kilometers. At that moment, all of the living beings in the Fox tribe territory could see a platinum sun rising from the ground, bringing boundless light and heat to this world. Chapter 10:24. Eightfold Darkness Holy Flame Mountain Quaking Lightning Fist. This was a spell technique that Enlin had created on the spur of the moment. Not only did this fist possess all of the advantages of the traditional nuclear lightning fist, but it was also imbued with the power of the Lord of Darkness, Ankiran, the holy flame vermilion bird, and pills. However, he was still not satisfied, and he continued to inject power into the fist, elevating it to 8 times its original power. To think that he had managed to create such a massive hodgepodge. In all honesty, even Enlin didn't know just how powerful this fist was. He regretted his decision in the instant that the explosion occurred. He regretted not running further away. The terrifying explosion instantly pulverized the 9-tailed divine fox's world of darkness. The 9-tailed divine fox's blood-curdling cries came to an abrupt end. Not only that, but it also engulfed all of the mighty figures present, including Enlin, Tina, and Xiao Zhe. All of the 4-9 Immortal Sect and Fox tribe powerful beings had already fled into the distance. However, they were still not spared from the explosion. They were still struck by the shock waves of the explosion and were knocked flying into the distance. The center of the explosion had already transformed into a white ball that twisted and shattered space, but the energy and shock waves radiating from the explosion extended into infinity and beyond, tearing up the entire ground below. Even Tang Shimen, who was standing at the pinnacle of the explosion, was knocked off the cliff by the shock wave. Holy F***CK. What the hell is this destructive energy? Did some living being self-destruct? Shui Zhantian's expression turned pale with fright as he was held in Su Xiaolan's arms. How could a self-destruct unleash such terrifying power? I don't believe it. Even the self-destruction of a return to void stage fatso of over 50 million kilograms wouldn't be able to unleash such power. Woof. Dabai was not being held in Su Xiaolan's arms due to his size and personality, so he immediately objected. Su Xiaolan unleashed her true dragon wall to protect everyone from the shockwaves. She pursed her lips as she looked at the terrifying energy surging through the air. The power is very similar to the nuclear lightning fist that Enlin used in the past, but isn't this power a little too ridiculous? That's right, this level of power didn't feel like something that a return to Void stage mighty figure could unleash. What I'm most worried about is that Enlin is still within the range of this move. Will he really be fine? Xian Yuanqing said worriedly. If that move was unleashed by Master, then there's no need to worry. Have you ever heard of anyone using their own technique to blow themselves up? No one would be that stupid, Xiao Hong said in her sweet voice. No. I've heard of it before, Xian Yuanqing replied solemnly. Lu Qianhuan massaged her brows and continued, Xiao Hong, your master is exactly the kind of person you're talking about. During the Tao Exchange Conference of the Four Powers, he was the one who annihilated an entire team with a single punch. Oh, that's right. He killed himself and his teammate. Little Red had nothing to say. She felt that she didn't understand her master well enough. The explosion gradually subsided. The destructive energy gradually dissipated. The destruction of space and the turbulence of primal chaos continued. Everyone turned their eyes toward the center of the explosion. Su Xiaolan and the others had already begun to converge toward the center of the explosion. Within a crater with no end in sight, a mushroom cloud was blown away by a certain power. Enlin. Su Xiaolan suddenly rushed toward a certain direction. Within the crater, she picked up a charred male in her arms. Her arms were trembling slightly, and her eyes were red as tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Enlin was in an extremely pitiful state. He was like a piece of charcoal, and his vitality was almost undetectable. Thankfully, he still had a heartbeat, and his evergreen technique was still circulating on its own to repair his injuries. Otherwise, Su Xiaolan would have collapsed on the spot. Su Xiaolan pulled out an immortal pill from her storage ring without hesitation and stuffed it into Enlin's mouth. Giant Enlin, a sobbing voice rang out. There was a fairy in Enlin's clasped hands, and she was struggling to open her palms. Even though her body was injured, she had been very well protected, so she had not fainted. However, tears began to flow from her eyes upon seeing the state Enlin was in. What? Giant Enlin, why did you get injured so badly for me? What? Tina was sobbing uncontrollably as she frantically unleashed her power to heal Enlin's injuries. Don't be too sad, little Na. Big brother and didn't get injured so badly for you. He would have been in this state regardless of whether he was protecting you or not, woof. Dabai consoled her. Tina, the fairy glared at Dabai. Can't you just let me be a little touched? Are you alright, master? Xiao Zhe limped over with bloodstains all over his body, and there was a panicked expression on his face as he looked at Enlin. He was situated quite far away from the center of the explosion, and his skin was quite thick, making him one of the most powerful return to Void stage cultivators. Even so, he had still sustained very severe injuries. His injuries have already stabilized. I really didn't think that he would use a technique like this again. It's a self-inflicted wound, Su Xiaolan said with a resigned expression. You're wrong. It's not injuring 1,000 enemies but injuring 800. It's injuring 1,000 enemies but injuring 5,600. Yudo's body began to appear, and his entire body was riddled with wounds from which blood was gushing forth, creating an extremely wretched sight. Su Qianyun cocked her head to the side with a confused expression. How could it be injuring 5,600? What kind of joke is that? Bai Ling made her way over to them expressionlessly. 800 times 7 equals 5,600. Everyone came to a sudden realization. There were a total of 7 allies on the battlefield, and Enlin had killed 1 enemy, but he had also crippled 7 allies, including himself, injuring 5,600s for the sake of killing 1,000 enemies. Big Brother and is bad *SS. Woof. Dabai was astonished. What an unprecedented feat! Shui Zhantian chimed in. All of the other mighty figures couldn't be bothered with these beast pets, and they all turned their attention to Enlin. What's the situation like now? Bai Muyu dragged her wounded body over to Enlin with a concerned expression. He's fine. He has very strong life force. A smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as she pulled out a coffin before placing Enlin into it. Bai Muyu, Yudo, and the others all grimaced upon hearing this. This is what you meant by fine? He's already in a coffin. How can you be so calm? Have you gone insane? Soon, they understood what was going on. That coffin possessed extremely powerful healing effects, in conjunction with the immortal pill and the power of the second stage of the evergreen technique. His body was rapidly recovering at a rate discernible to the naked eye. Chen Hao has been blasted into a skeleton. Qing Beichen slowly made his way over to them. His handsome features were charred black, but he was still very handsome. He tossed a storage ring toward Su Xiaolan. Enlin contributed the most to this operation, so you can have Chen Hao's spoils of war. Thank you, Senior. Su Xiaolan accepted the storage ring with a smile. Enlin had risked his life for this, so she accepted it without any qualms. Qing Beichen turned to Bai Muyu and said, "The biggest enemy has been eliminated, but there will still be repercussions. The remaining forces of the Black Fox tribe will either be eliminated or absorbed into their rank. As for the threat of the Spirit Fish clan, we should also prepare to deal with them." Bai Muyu nodded. The four major powers of the Fox tribe are the White Fox, Black Fox, Green Fox, and Red Fox. It looks like the Black Fox tribe will have to retire from the scene. Without the support of a return to void final stage mighty figure, it was no longer a top-rate power. Chen Hao's son, Chen Nan, is a problem. He has a very close relationship with Lan Xiaoni of the Spirit Fish clan. If the two of them get married, then it'll be very difficult to deal with the Black Fox tribe. Qing Beichen was a little distressed. Right at this moment, a heroic voice sounded from the distance. If you're worried about Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni getting married, then you don't have to worry anymore. That's because Chen Nan's head is with me. A cultivator flew over atop his sword with a heroic expression. Chapter 10:25. Under everyone's gaze, a man flew over on his sword. A bunch of Return to Void stage mighty figures were staring at him. A bunch of Return to Void stage mighty figures were staring up at him. This was the pinnacle of Tang Shiman's life. Tang Shiman flew over gracefully atop his sword before landing beside Enlin. "I've brought Chen Nan's head." He tossed out a human head from his storage ring as he spoke. Thump! The head fell to the ground. Piss off, piss off, piss off. Everyone let loose cries of surprise upon seeing the human head. It really was Chen Nan's head. Bad *SS Brother Tang. Woof. Dabai clapped his hands in praise. Senior student Tang, you really can't judge a book by its cover, Su Qianyun chimed in her mellow voice. Tang Shiman's chest constricted slightly upon receiving praise from his female student. What did she mean by that? Didn't he look bad *SS? He clearly had the disposition of a powerful being. Chen Nan was a powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage. He was extremely cunning and had many trump cards up his sleeves, Qing Beichen praised with a smile. Tang Shiman also joined his hands in salute. You're far too kind, Senior. It's just a small matter. These words were very satisfying to hear, and they were coming from the leader of the Green Fox tribe. Chen Nan's death was extremely significant to the Green Fox tribe. After all, Chen Nan and Lan Xiaoni weren't married yet, so there was a limit to how much the Spirit Fish clan could retaliate. As such, there would be much less resistance when it came to purging the Black Fox tribe. Not long after that, another burst of energy fluctuations erupted from the distance. Su Xiaolan and the others looked up to discover that it was Xiao Chou and Bai Yao. The explosion had created such a huge commotion that they would be able to identify where they were as long as they weren't blind. Little Yao, why are you here? Bai Muyu heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that Bai Yao was safe and sound. Xiao Chou and I were very worried about you, Bai Yao replied. Xiao Chou's face turned deathly pale upon seeing Enlin's charred body, and he almost burst into tears as he rushed toward the coffin. Fortunately, Su Xiaolan explained in time that Enlin's life was not in danger. Only then did he suppress the sadness in his heart. Xiao Chou turned to look at the human head in Tang Shimen's hand, and his eyes lit up. Senior student Tang, you killed Chen Nan who escaped from me and Little Yao? This is great. Tang Shimen's face convulsed as he stared incredulously at Xiao Chou. He was currently in the process of showing off, so how could the clown mercilessly expose the fact that he was picking up the last hit? Ahem, that's right. Chen Nan resisted quite strongly at the time. That was an earth-shattering battle, and several dozen mountains were blasted apart in succession before Chen Nan was finally slain. A reminiscent expression appeared on Tang Shimen's face as he tried to redeem himself. All the students rolled their eyes. Didn't they know just how powerful Tang Shimen was? In short, the battle had finally come to an end. Enlin also gradually regained consciousness. He saw everyone staring at him with concern across the coffin, and he couldn't help but shed tears of regret. Xiaolan, let me explain. I really went too far this time. I really didn't want to take such a risk. Hee, you can explain it to me after you've recovered. Su Xiaolan chuckled coldly. Seniors, how did you guys also sustain such severe injuries? Could it be that Chen Hao didn't die from that attack of mine, and he retaliated with all his might? Mr. Enlin sure knows how to joke. We were all killed by you. Cold sweat poured down Enlin's forehead as he turned to look at Tang Shimen and the human head beneath his feet. Impressive, senior student Tang. You managed to land the killing blow and kill him. Tang Shimen felt as if a sword had been stabbed into his heart again, and he roared with rage in his heart. You're lying in a coffin, yet you still want to insult me? Classmate Enlin sure has sharp eyes, Tang Shimen grumbled. Enlin looked at Tang Shimen's darkened expression and couldn't help but wonder if he had said something wrong. Did he say something wrong? That couldn't be right. Tang Shimen was only at the spirit-nurturing final stage, so he could only have killed Chen Nan, who was at the soul formation pinnacle stage. Xiao Chou was the most emotional of all of them. After seeing Enlin wake up, he didn't even look at his wife. Instead, he wanted to stay by Enlin's side. Oi, Xiao Chou, I told you I'm fine, so don't neglect the bride, Enlin said with a resigned expression. Big brother En, you were injured because of me, so how could I abandon you? You're the most important person right now, and I want to keep an eye on you. Xiao Chou spoke with an extremely sincere expression. Enlin silently closed his eyes as he stared at Xiao Chou's ghastly face plastered to the coffin. Idiot, you want to keep an eye on me, but I don't want to keep an eye on you. I want to see beautiful women like Xiaolan, Su Qianyun, and Su Qianyun. Why did you have to come here just to stain my eyes? In any case, the 4-9 Immortal Sect and the Fox Tribe were the victors of this battle. Under Enlin's vehement insistence, the wedding continued. As for the battle and the earth-shattering explosion, Enlin only smiled. Xiao Chou, did you like the cannon salute I prepared for your wedding? Xiao Chou sobbed uncontrollably. Bai Yao was extremely touched. She felt like Xiao Chou's master was peerlessly domineering. Qinghu City was once again transformed into a sea of joy. Dancing and singing filled the air, and there were countless guests. Due to their victory, the Fox Tribe was even more elated. A series of beautiful Fox Tribe beauties danced on the stage. Some of them were even pole dancing with great enthusiasm, and Enlin and the others' hearts were surging with excitement. Men. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. She was a little displeased, but she couldn't let Enlin and the others down on such a joyous occasion, so she could only sit off to the side with Su Qianyun and munch on sunflower seeds. Enlin was already able to get out of the coffin. As for his internal injuries, he would be able to recover after a few days of rest. Fireworks blossomed in the night sky, illuminating the monotonous night sky. This was going to be a sleepless night. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao made their way to the VIP seats and offered toasts to everyone. Xiao Chou made his way to Enlin and downed 9 cups of wine in a row before bursting into tears again with Enlin in his arms. Bai Yao raised her wine cup and made her way over to Enlin with a dainty smile on her face. Big brother Enlin, if it weren't for you, Xiao Chou and I wouldn't be together. I'll remember all of this in my heart. Hence, I'll toast this cup of wine to you. After going to so many tables, this was the first time she drank the cup of highly alcoholic celestial wine in such a straightforward manner. Enlin naturally wasn't going to hesitate and also downed the entire cup of wine in one go. I wish you happiness, Enlin said. Bai Yao and Xiao Chou both nodded with earnest expressions. This happiness hadn't come easily to them, so they were definitely going to cherish it. They chatted for a while longer. Not long after that, they left the banquet. Yes, they were going to welcome the 3 great joys of their lives, the wedding night. Chapter 10:26. A string of information instantly appeared in his mind. The first thing that caught his eye was 230 vital stones, which was equivalent to 2,300,000 spirit stones. Enlin was quite impressed by the sight of a vixen dancing around. Xiao Hong wagged her head from side to side. What's so good about marriage? You should learn from me and embrace the sun. Praise the sun. The sun is justice. The sun is happiness. His eyes rolled over. Divine inspection technique. He suddenly said, take off your pink undergarments and reveal your smooth, jade-like body. Your snowy white peaks stand tall, and your fragrance is so alluring that I'm drooling. That place was isolated from the hustle and bustle, and it was as tranquil as a paradise. A faint smile appeared on his face as he refined the storage ring. Sigh, I'm so angry. However, such a wondrous woman was being embraced by a wondrous monkey. Your return to void final stage mighty figure, but you don't even have an immortal tool? Enlin was a little exasperated. Su Xiaolan couldn't help but feel like their master and disciple relationship was a little too good. Big Brother Cho has become the first winner in our beast pet team, woof. Dabai sighed with emotion. Dabai continued, you've mesmerized countless starving people. They've captured you, pinched you, sucked you in their mouths, and chewed on you. I've never been able to leave you since I was a child. Ah, my dear Peanut. Look at that Xiao Zhe. He's been staring at the stage the entire time. Why would he think of feeding his master? The veins on Enlin's forehead bulged. I refuse to believe this. I'm going to open you up. I've been tricked. 2,000 words were omitted below. Enlin silently turned his eyes toward the center of the stage. Smells so good, woof. After enjoying the dance, Enlin turned his eyes toward the ring in his hand. He pulled out the box, only to find that he couldn't find a way to open it. Enlin. After that, he turned his attention to other things. There were 3 high-rank spirit tools as well as some miscellaneous materials, but there was nothing that surprised him. Enlin was extremely excited, and he immediately unleashed his divine inspection technique. There weren't many immortal pills, only one, but it was a second-grade immortal pill of an extremely high rank. There were 3 healing celestial fruit. The 6 revolution green essence fruit was a 5th-grade celestial fruit. He couldn't be bothered with the 2 pet beasts with improper views on love and continued watching the performance on stage. He's not just Enlin's servants, beast pets, and disciples. He's the winner of our entire 4-9 immortal sect. Tang Shiman's blood was boiling with envy. If he could marry such a beautiful wife, then he would have no regrets in his life. Sure enough, accepting a little lowly as a disciple was much better than accepting a girl. Everyone. A rough calculation showed that his current assets were close to 70 million spirit stones, and he was getting closer and closer to his target of 100 million. Enlin chuckled and thought to himself, what do you know? Everyone looked on with envy at Xiao Chou and Bai Yao's departing figures. Wasn't feeding her something that her would-be Dao companion should do? Lin opened his mouth and bit down on the fruit that Yi Ling had handed to him before carefully tasting it. Su Xiaolan turned to Lin and Yi Ling with a vexed expression. It was over for a little girl so sweet. A series of handsome male foxes danced, sang, and performed spell techniques, and all of the female spectators screamed in excitement. Was this a mockery? This had to be a mockery, right? Also, he felt like something was a little off, as if this wasn't how things were supposed to play out. However, a strange box caught his attention. In case everyone was saying that he was a water addict, following that was a dozen or so high-rank spirit pills and spirit fruits, all of which exuded astonishing energy fluctuations. It's not just the Beast Pet Group. It's my servant group, my Beast Pet Group, my disciple group, and myself who are the first winners in life. Lin was very tired. What kind of experience was it to have his beast pets consummate their wedding night before him? Dark Phoenix Dead Spirit Pill, a second-grade immortal pill refined from the bone marrow of a mythological beast. Consumption of this pill can enhance one's divine sense and absorb the power of dark flames. There is also a certain chance that one will be able to master the Tao of the Dark Phoenix. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao drank some wine from one another before snuggling up against each other on the bed. Lin fell silent as he looked at the smooth wooden box before him. He had only just recovered from his severe injuries, so he was not in a good position to move around, so he was naturally able to bask in his disciple's attention. However, in another place, what followed was a series of erotic scenes. On the stage, a beautiful female fox danced in a myriad of ways. Her hips were swaying from side to side, and her seductive eyes seemed to be able to seduce the onlooker's soul. It's an auspicious day, and it's the time to open the storage ring. Let me see what's inside the storage ring of the leader of the Black Fox tribe, Chen Hao. He pried open the peanut shells with his paws as he spoke and took off his pink underwear before continuing to eat. The candlelight flickered, and the white fox and the monkey were both intoxicated. That's strange. Why isn't there a part to open the box? Bai Yao lowered her head shyly as a faint smile appeared on her face. Her bashfulness was tinged with a hint of seduction, and her seductive demeanor was enough to enchant all of the male foxes. All of a sudden, she came to a realization. He hesitated momentarily before deciding to consume this pill after his body had fully recovered. The fox tribe was extremely proficient in the art of beauty, and it wasn't just limited to the beauty of humans. There were countless types of dances, and they could make rock golems, vegetable golems, and flatbread monsters reach orgasm just by looking at them. Everyone else also averted their gazes with awkward expressions on their faces. However, they were too embarrassed to hammer Dabai as Dabai was right. They were the ones who were thinking the wrong thing. Thankfully, all of the female cultivators of the 4-9 Immortal sect were more reserved and not as crazy as the other female fans. This was perhaps because they were used to seeing Big Brother Ching, so they had developed an immunity toward handsome men. A mechanical wooden box could not be opened by a brainless person. Master, here, have a bite. Yi Ling peeled off the shell of a precious fruit before placing the fruit into Lin's mouth. What the F***ck? You're only telling me this after talking for so long? What's so good about marriage? Is it as fun as creating a world? Tina chimed in. However, Dabai seemed to have sensed something as he looked in the direction that Xiao Chou and Bai Yao had departed in. Lin silently lowered his saber, and Lu Qianhuan silently put away her wand. The two of them gradually drew closer and kissed. Everyone stared at Dabai with astonishment on their faces, as if they were looking at a freak. Who would have thought that Dabai would dare to say something like this in public? Today was the pinnacle of Xiao Chou's monkey life. A wide smile appeared on Yi Ling's face at the sight of Lin happily eating, and she continued to feed him with a sense of accomplishment. Not only did she peel fruits, but she also peeled peanuts and melon seeds, of course. The fox tribe wouldn't ignore the female population. Little Yao, we're finally husband and wife. A hideous smile appeared on Xiao Chou's face. Chapter 10:27. Qinghu City was a city that never slept, and representatives from the creation realm and other places on the Tai Chu continent partied until dawn. Enlin and the others also partied until dawn. Xiao Chou and Bai Yao also partied until dawn. None of that was important. The most important thing was that Enlin had finally found the switch to that mysterious box, thereby proving that he was an intelligent man. After opening the box, there was a blue diagram within. There were a series of white dots and complex lines on the diagram, and Enlin was dumbstruck upon seeing this. Is this a spell formation? A formation diagram? It doesn't look like it. He was dizzy from the dazzling lines. He had no choice but to ask his teammates for help. This looks like a map? Xianyuan Qing asked. Lu Qianhuan nodded. This should be the star trajectory diagram of a certain place. Star trajectory diagram? This was the first time Enlin had heard of something like this. What's a star trajectory diagram? As an experienced and knowledgeable disciple, Xiao Zhe patiently answered his master's question. A star trajectory diagram is a method of determining a certain coordinate by observing the starry sky from a certain angle. Look, Master, these white dots represent the distribution of stars, and the white lines represent the orbits of the stars. When we look up at the sky from different places, there will be slight differences in the starry sky. The orbit of the starry sky is located at the place where the starry sky shown on the map can be seen at midnight. Enlin was dumbstruck. How can we tell that? The Tai Chu continent is so big. Are we supposed to go to every place to look at the stars and match them? That doesn't make sense. Enlin, you seem to have forgotten that there is a profession known as stargazers. Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes flashed with a mysterious light. There is a type of living being that is born with a special ability to sense the stars in the sky. They can use the movement of the stars to predict fortune, thereby allowing them to see everything in this world. In other words, they can draw upon the power of the stars to see the star trajectory diagram. Perhaps they will be able to sense the location indicated by the map. Lu Qianhuan's explanation was very profound. Enlin was used to seeing all sorts of strange phenomena, and he quickly accepted this explanation. This world was very, very big, and there were countless abilities and talents in this world. He felt that it was impossible, but there might be extraordinary people who could do it. Then, who do you think will be able to decipher this artwork? Enlin asked. Lu Qian fantasized for a short while before replying. The Spirit Fish Clan and the Heavenly Turtle Tribe are both very well versed in the art of star divination. The mighty ones among them loved to play with this kind of star trajectory chart. The beings of these two races might be able to help us. Enlin frowned slightly. Suddenly, a guess exploded in his mind. The Spirit Fish Clan mighty figures liked to play with these things, and Chun Hao also had one in his possession. Spirit Fish Clan, Chun Hao, Black Fox Tribe, marriage, could all of this be related to the map in the box? Enlin was starting to get restless. Could the location marked on the map be the treasure left behind by a man who had wealth, fame, power, and everything in the world? It could make people all over the world rush to the sea soon. Enlin's eyes began to burn with raging flames. Treasure-seeking king. He was definitely going to be one. Su Xiaolan noticed Enlin's expression and spoke. You can only go after you've recovered from your injuries. The flames in Enlin's eyes were snuffed out, and he nodded obediently. Everyone rested for another day in the White Fox Imperial Palace. Xiao Chou only walked out on the evening of the second day of the wedding. Enlin, Xianyuan Qing, Dabai, and all the other men were astonished. Seeing the clown struggling to walk, no one took the initiative to help him. F***ck. 4 losers like them, what interest would they have in helping a monkey winner? No one wanted to disturb Xiao Chou's happiness. Instead, they wanted to leave. I've decided. I'm going to marry a vixen sister. After witnessing the exquisitely beautiful vixen Bai Yao and the blissful expression on Xiao Chou's face, Tang Shimin finally made a decision. And Lin chuckled coldly. There's no point in marrying her. Do you think you can last as long as Xiao Chou? Tang Shimin. These words were like a heavy blow to Tang Shimin, causing him to feel extremely ashamed. Xiao Chou made his way over to them. And Lin turned to Xiao Chou with a strained smile on his face. You've been doing this for so long? Xiao Chou faltered slightly before nodding. That's right. I'm so tired. I've exhausted all of my yang energy. Everyone chuckled coldly. Xiao Chou was a little dumbstruck. There was nothing wrong with what he had just said. In order to save Bai Yao, he had intercourse with her for an entire day and used his dark god flame to neutralize the terrifying power of the frosty yang root, thereby resulting in his overexertion. Why was everyone looking at him with expressions of shock and inferiority? Come on, Xiao Chou, you've worked hard today. I'll be the chef today and prepare a feast for everyone. Su Xiaolan already had the demeanor of a chef god. She stood on the spot with a frying pan in her hand, exuding a sense of majesty and beauty. Everyone almost threw up a mouthful of blood upon hearing this. Hard my A*s. We want this kind of hard work as well. Xiao Chou was extremely touched, and he expressed his gratitude towards Su Xiaolan. Not only was his master very good to him, but his master's Dao partner-to-be was also very good to him. What a big, heartwarming family! Bai Yao also made her way over to them with a hint of a healthy flush on her face. She had clearly been well nourished. Su Xiaolan asked with a smile, "How are you feeling, little Yao?" A gentle and shy smile appeared on Bai Yao's face as she replied in a seductive and soft voice, "Thanks to Xiao Chou's tireless efforts, my frosty yang root has been cured." And Lin, everyone. That night, Su Xiaolan cooked a large pot of stir-fried tiger kidney god. Su Xiaolan, Xiao Chou, little Yao, make sure to replenish your energy. And Lin and everyone else had tears streaming down their faces. They didn't need to replenish their energy. They hadn't even fired their bullets yet. If they continued to replenish their energy like this, the chamber would explode. However, who could understand their feelings of being abused one after another? Xiao Chou was extremely touched, and he expressed his gratitude towards Su Xiaolan. Not only was his master very good to him, but his Dao partner-to-be was also very good to him. Even her cooking was so caring and considerate. What a big, heartwarming family! This was a banquet that was intertwined with happiness and sorrow. Everyone stayed in Qinghu City for another day. Bai Yao and the White Fox tribe parted ways. If she married a chicken, she would follow the chicken. If she married a dog, she would follow the dog. If she married a monkey, she would follow the monkey. This beautiful Princess White Fox was going to become a member of the 4-9 Immortal Sect family. Little Yao, come back often when you have time. This will always be your second home. Tears welled up in Bai Muyu's eyes as she held the woman in her arms in a gentle voice. Got it, mother. Bai Yao hugged her mother tightly in her arms as tears streamed down her face. All of the 4-9 Immortal Sect members boarded the Space Ferry spaceship and waved farewell to the handsome men and beautiful women from the Fox tribe before rising into the sky and disappearing into the clouds. And Lin and the others had left, but this was only just the beginning. Chapter 1028. Bai Yao's arrival at the 4-9 Immortal Sect created a massive stir. Elder Monkey had taken a wife, and it was a beautiful celestial maiden. This piece of news swept through the sect like a gust of wind, shocking all of the sect members. Everyone turned around to discover that the man who was least likely to get a wife had married a beautiful celestial maiden. What kind of explosive experience was that? On the Dao Plaza of the Dragon Pavilion. As it turns out, you don't have to be pretty to find a wife. The ordinary-looking Gongshi Chern stroked his long, flowing hair with a confident expression. Sun Xiaodai chuckled coldly. But you have to be pretty. You don't have to be handsome, but you have to be ugly. Otherwise, how are you going to make beautiful women remember you? The ordinary-looking Gongshi Chern was left speechless after being stabbed in the chest. Currently, the 4-9 Immortal sect only had 4 pavilions. The Dragon Pavilion, the Man Pavilion, the Sword Pavilion, and the Purple Star Pavilion. In the end, Bai Yao chose to join the Man Pavilion, which was led by Little Lang. The white-scaled wolf god's mastery of the man tribe cultivation methods and techniques was quite exceptional. After a brief period of uproar, everything returned to normal. However, the sect's reputation was on the rise. News of the 4-9 Immortal sect's victory against the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, as well as the Fox Tribe incident, began to spread throughout the Tai Chu continent. The 4-9 Immortal sect's influence grew stronger and stronger, and no sect dared to mess with them anymore. At the very least, powers like the 9 Imperials or the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas would have to consider their own strength before making a move. Lin rested for 5 days at the sect, and his injuries were completely healed. Xianyuan Cheng and the others had already returned to school, and Su Xiaolan had also begun her journey to become the chef god. Lin looked at the map in his hand with a hint of excitement in his heart. Should he go and see what was there? If this map was related to the Spirit Fish clan, then it would be quite dangerous. It would be too dangerous for him to go alone, and he would need some reinforcements. The 4-9 Immortal sect had only just gotten on the right track, and the Divine Mirror Enforcement Department was beginning to shine, so he didn't have many people to go with him. Lin tried his best to persuade the Jade Bone Immortal Bug to give up on photosynthesis with Xiao Hong and agree to go with him. The considerate Tina also agreed to come along. To her, traveling and adventuring to interesting places was her favorite thing to do. Just like that, the 3 of them immediately set off for the West Sea. As the name suggested, the West Sea was the westernmost ocean of the Tai Chu continent. The sea there was boundless, and all kinds of mysterious and powerful sea beasts and sea demons thrived there. In the West Sea, the 2 most prominent powers were the Spirit Fish clan and the Heavenly Turtle tribe. Lin knew that these 2 tribes were also 2 of the most intelligent tribes among the 10 Realm Guardian tribes. He had even seen their development in the Divine Mirror world. All in all, the Spirit Fish clan was quite aggressive, while the Heavenly Turtle tribe was content to stay out of worldly affairs. Lin was naturally going to look for the Heavenly Turtle tribe. 1,000. Lin waved sword. Of Yao Heaven, see, a Yao clan sect, san of li of Yao. An smile of sect disciples. And Yao, a satisfied smile appeared on Lin's face. It had to be said that Bai Ling was very adept at teaching others. This sect rule of sending off the sect leader was very much to his liking. A little fairy sat on Lin's left shoulder, which was a portable teleportation hack. A little rainbow butterfly floated on his right shoulder, which was a simple poison and barrier hack. Lin walked toward the teleportation spell formation and began his journey to the West Sea. The farthest teleportation spell formation in the Kingdom of the 9 States could take him was the Western Paradise. The Buddhist kingdom and the Celestial Court maintained a friendly relationship, and Qing Ji had transcended his tribulation with Lin's help. He had heard a lot about this renowned region on the Tai Chu continent, and he had always yearned to visit it. After a rush of dizziness, Lin appeared on a circular Dao plaza. This place was filled with living beings who had been teleported here. Wow, there are so many dazzling bald heads. Xiao Hong would love this place. The Jade Bone Immortal Bug had clearly been influenced by Xiao Hong, and it was extremely excited. Most of the living beings here were monks and nuns, and their bald heads shone brightly under the sun like moving light bulbs. Lin couldn't help but recall the bald, muscular monks with benevolent smiles on their faces that had been summoned by Xiao Hong's domain upon hearing this. Thinking of this, he silently shivered again. Lin looked up at the clear sky, the radiant sun, and the smiles on the faces of the passers-by. This place really did look like a paradise. All the shops along the way were open, and he heard that they didn't have to close at night. There were no thieves on the streets as there was no need to steal anything. If you had no food or shelter, the monks would provide you with food and shelter. If you had no job, the monks would introduce you to a job. If you had no cultivation methods, the monks would give you a good cultivation method. If you had no money, the monks would provide you with money for emergencies. If you had no women, the monks would create an inflatable doll for you to play with. However, if you forced yourself on a woman, then I'm sorry, the monks would send you to the true paradise. In any case, this was a world where you could live a very peaceful and happy life. All of your basic needs could be satisfied. There was very little desire to commit crimes. And Lin and the others strolled around the city and discovered that Qing, whose city was still the most interesting place. The monks weren't as handsome as the fox boys, and the nuns weren't as seductive as the fox girls. He bought a few tranquil joss sticks to help him relax before setting off for the West Sea. That's right, he had to get down to business. Little Na, it's all up to you now. Go west, Lin instructed. All right. Tina spread open her arms and tore open the space before her. Cries of surprise erupted from all around. A return-to-void stage mighty figure who could control spatial power was extremely eye-catching no matter where they went, especially when it was being unleashed by such an adorable little fairy. Tina held onto Lin's large hand, and they stepped into the spatial passageway together. They disappeared from the heavenly realm, thus concluding their short journey. The Western Paradise was about 500,000 kilometers away from the West Sea. Tina's spatial spell techniques were extremely proficient, and Shui Zhantian's road rage disorder was no match for her. Thus, she covered 500,000 kilometers in just 2 days. Above a vast expanse of blue ocean, a spatial crack appeared. And Lin, Tina, and the Jade Bone Immortal Bug had arrived at the legendary West Sea. Wow, there's so much water! What a huge ocean! Tina's eyes widened in amazement, and Lin's lips twitched. You should learn some idioms from little Tian. Otherwise, it'll be very embarrassing for you to speak in such a vulgar language. Tina pursed her lips and humphed in displeasure before ignoring him. And Lin turned his eyes toward the vast ocean. So, how are we going to find the heavenly turtle tribes moving Heavenly Star Island? Chapter 1029. It was as if the mermaid had been meticulously sculpted by the heavens. She sat on a chair with her blue fishtail tilted to one side as she wept incessantly. Su Xiaolan said that I would understand once I arrived here, and Lin murmured to himself as he gazed at the boundless sea. So, what did I understand? He didn't even have any passion left. He turned his gaze toward the northwest, where there seemed to be a thin layer of mist enshrouding the area in the distance. The mermaid guard used its precious life to prove to us. The sea monsters that had volunteered to be the seafood had already filled up 5 top-quality storage rings. Most of these species were trash. Aside from the fearless and brainless sea urchin warriors, who were a bit annoying, the jellyfish all silently avoided Lin. He curiously stopped the brick to see what it was. Princess, don't cry. The dead can't be brought back to life. Don't cry, one of the mermaids consoled. And Lin, even though the sea monster was within his field of view, that didn't mean that it was very close to him. The main reason why Lin was able to see it was because the black shadow was too massive and had an extremely wide field of view. It was said that it was an island that floated in the West Sea and moved according to a certain pattern. I'm innocent. That's not what I meant. When a woman was angry, she would not listen to reason. And Lin continued onward. The reason why he didn't speed up was so that Tina could broaden her horizons and see if there were any interesting fish in the sea. And Lin and the others continued onward, and all of the sea monsters that they killed were stowed away by Lin into his storage ring. He would be able to get some seafood to eat in the future. All of the bone-devouring fish exploded at the same time as they were unable to withstand the terrifying power. Tears streamed down the mermaid guard's face as it made its final struggle. What the F***ck was wrong with it? Little Na, you've changed, Lin said with a pained expression. Bam bam bam. At this moment, countless splashes appeared, and thousands of black fish pounced at Enlin like missiles, opening their bloody, jagged mouths. Lan Xiaoni's sobs faltered upon hearing this, and her eyes widened with rage as she glowered at the mermaid guard. What you're saying is, Chern Nan isn't ugly and crooked, and I was the one who made him out to be ugly and crooked? Lan Xiaoni's rage was unquenchable. Guards, drag this fish out and behead it. Wow, Giant Enlin, look over there. What's that black thing? Tina pointed toward a certain direction with a curious expression. Ostriches? Enlin looked at the tens of thousands of bone-devouring fish that swooped down, raised his hand, and pressed it into the void. Let's go. Enlin didn't hesitate any longer, and he immediately flew off on his brick. Enlin had only used one palm to complete the magnificent feat of annihilating the entire team without the slightest bit of sloppiness. Enlin and the others continued onward in an invincible manner until they finally caught sight of the white mist in the distance. These so-called 10 great beasts of the West Sea had all been annihilated. A massive palm constructed from vital energy fell from the sky, enshrouding all of the bone-devouring fish before crashing down mercilessly. It was afraid that if it explained too slowly, Enlin would destroy all of these beasts before it did. Please spare us, Your Highness. Faint sobbing sounds could be heard. At the same time, within the Sea Heart Palace, these are one of the 10 great beasts of the West Sea, the bone-devouring fish. Individually, they aren't very powerful, but when they attack in groups, they can unleash extremely terrifying power. The knowledgeable Jade Bone Immortal Bug let loose a cry of surprise before quickly providing an explanation. Rumble, the Jade Bone Immortal Bug looked up into the sky with a dejected expression. The monsters had already been slain, so what was the point of continuing to explain? How could his words be interpreted like this? No wonder Su Xiaolan said that Enlin would understand once he arrived here. The direction was indeed very clear. Very good, we're finally about to enter the mist. The mermaid guard faltered slightly upon hearing this before offering words of consolation. You're not blind, young Master Chern Nan is extremely handsome and gorgeous. He's one of the most handsome men in the world. Any fearsome creature was a joke in the face of absolute power. For example, if they were going to kill a demon king, they would of course introduce how bad *SS the demon king was. Were they going to wait until the demon king was insta-killed by Enlin before introducing how bad *SS the demon king was? During this time, they also encountered highly intelligent life forms such as the jellyfish tribe and the sea urchin tribe. However, to Enlin and the others, this was only a scenic excursion. Enlin discovered that there was a gargantuan black shadow beneath the clear blue sea that was quickly approaching them. It struck them with the sense that a storm was about to descend, and it was extremely suffocating. Enlin immediately unleashed a mountain-quaking fist to pulverize the gargantuan octopus into mincemeat. The aura of the countless mutant beasts combined to become extremely fearsome. Little Na was no longer that considerate little cotton-padded jacket. She was a heart-wrenching pain. It would be a miracle if he didn't associate this creature with the heavenly turtle tribe after seeing it. In an instant, 2 shadow guards rushed over and dragged the Murloc guard out of the door. That's right, to normal cultivators, the West Sea was a terrifying place that was fraught with peril. Wah! I'm not crying because that B***star died. I'm crying because I was blind. How could I have fallen for such a crooked creature? Blood splattered through the air, and it was as if a torrential rain of blood had fallen over the surface of the sea. Lan Xiaoni ignored it and continued to cry. The gargantuan octopus over a kilometer tall let loose an enraged roar as its 3 massive tentacles swept toward Tina with earth-shattering power, as if to express its displeasure at being given a random name. The moving Heavenly Star Island was the main territory of the Heavenly Turtle tribe. The Jade Bone Immortal Bug turned toward the northwest before speaking in a feeble voice. Master, do I see a very large bion head in that direction? The Jade Bone Immortal Bug heaved a light sigh of relief. Thank God it had spoken quickly. If a spirit-nurturing stage cultivator were to encounter a school of fish like this, then they would fall into despair. Unfortunately, this school of fish had encountered Lin. The mermaid guard was dumbstruck. Wow, Giant Lin, look. This octopus is so big, but it only has 3 tentacles. Is this a 3-legged seal? Tina's beautiful eyes widened with excitement. Wow, little sister Little Goo is so awesome. You know so much. Go on, I want to hear more. Tina put on an adorable smile, and spoke in a very understanding manner. This is a West Sea ghost hand demonic octopus. It lives in the depths of the ocean and is. The jade bone immortal bug didn't even get a chance to finish her introduction before the octopus was insta-killed. The sobbing creature was none other than the princess of the spirit fish clan, Lan Xiaoni. His heart tightened slightly. He was finally going to have to deal with one of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes, the Heavenly Turtle tribe, so he was quite nervous. A massive black figure that resembled the head of a turtle shimmered in and out of existence. There were no living beings that were directly connected to that island. There weren't even any navigation routes, let alone teleportation spell formations. Tina tapped her chin. Do you understand how useless you are? Her voice faltered as a sense of indignation welled up in her heart. Thus, they traveled for tens of thousands of kilometers,